never increased rent for 40 years.
Most of the landlords are like this.
I work.
And this a moratorium wouldn't affect you because you're not these people. It was just the bad apples fall off.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Housing
Really?
Yeah. Housing Rights Center knows about it. Yeah. But the director of the Housing Rights Center knows about it. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, and even in AB 1482, the mom and pop landlords are exempt. It doesn't affect the corporations board. You can have an LLC, and one of the people is affiliated with a corporation. So a lot of people don't realize that, but the smaller landlords, they're not really affected. It's kind of a safe gap. Yeah.
I know, right? Right? Yeah. Oh, well, for me, the lower issue is the opposite. Just give me that's a good issue. Unless it's a really horrible life, it's not like or like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
I'm not good at as a judge, you have to rule on
Most of that, though, is takes like abuse of discretion in the attorney phase. You get a pretty good standard. And it has to be outcome determinative, too. It's
Well,
universal.
good to see you.
right, right. So should I just I said, are you all done?
Yeah. There's four, right? Check. Thanksgiving. What? I know. My cousin lives there, and I've not been out to visit him. He's been there.
Call the meeting in order without him. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It's 6:33. Regular session of the San Gabriel City Council is now called to order. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Liao.
Okay. All right, please all rise and place your right hand at your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pooh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Menchaca,
Here.
Councilmember Costanzo,
Here.
Councilmember Harrington,
Here.
Councilmember Liao.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of agenda order. Is there any
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
motion and second? Any objection? Seeing none, it is so ordered. And we have presentations.
California Highway Patrol Auto Theft Recognition. Presentation will be made by Captain Fabian Valdez.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Pooh, Vice Mayor Menchaca, and members of the City Council. I'm hoping that the crowd in the back is coming in. Excellent. They were a little off cue. Okay, so here we go. Tonight, members of the council, we're here to recognize 5 members of the police department who have earned a very who have earned recognition for an outstanding achievement. And so the 10851 Award was established by the Automobile Club of Southern California and the California Highway Patrol to recognize the outstanding achievement in detection, investigation, and apprehension of automobile thieves. To qualify for a 10851 Award, officers must accomplish one of the 3 achievements that I'll be reading off next within a 12-month period. The first way to earn the award is to make 6 separate in-custody arrests relating to auto theft. The second way to earn the award is to recover 12 or more stolen vehicles, at least 3 of which were occupied by a suspect. And the third way to earn the award is to develop information which results in identifying an auto theft ring and leads to the subsequent arrest of 2 or more suspects and the recovery of at least 10 stolen vehicles. So with that, as I call the officer's name, would you please step forward? So this year, the San Gabriel Police Department has recognized 5 officers who have earned their 10851 award, with one of the 5 officers earned his 2nd award. So Officer Shivaga, if you could please step forward. Excellent. Officer Shivaga has recovered 12 stolen vehicles and arrested 3 individuals for auto theft. Officer Hernandez, if you could please step forward. Officer Hernandez has recovered 12 stolen vehicles and arrested 3 individuals for auto theft. Officer Pham, if you could please step forward. Officer Pham has recovered 13 stolen vehicles and arrested 4 individuals for auto theft. Officer Martinez, if you could please step forward. Officer Martinez has recovered 12 stolen vehicles and arrested 3 individuals for auto theft. And last but not least, Officer Steven Garcia, if you would please step forward. Officer Garcia has recovered 15 stolen vehicles and arrested 3 individuals for auto theft. So it's a very prestigious accomplishment. Good job, and it just goes to show you that members of the department are out there fighting crime. So congratulations. At this time, we're going to present each officer with their award. And they also get to wear a pin on their shirt, on their uniform shirt, recognizing them as individuals who have attained this wonderful achievement. So with that being said, members of the council, do you mind if we take a picture with the officers?
Absolutely, we would be delighted.
Excellent. Maybe over here. Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, and thanks to all those officers for all their hard work, and for all the members of the San Gabriel Police Department for all they do to help fight crime and keep us safe. These are special recognitions, so it's a testament to the hard work and dedication of our SGPD officers. Okay, next item, please.
Community engagement video. Presentation will be made by Police Chief Eugene Harris.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, good evening. It's a pleasure to follow those kind of awards. Those are the really wonderful highlights to demonstrate to you folks what it is these guys do out here. That was a lot of stolen cars that we got back for people. No, they were stolen somewhere else. All right, we found them. We don't have stolen cars in San Gabriel. So that's the official version. But it is an indicator of the work that these folks put in. These were the highest scores, but that means there were also some others that were doing those recoveries and taking bad people to jail as well. So the entire department is to be commended. But that is the enforcement side of the house, the enforcement and protection side of what we do. There's also that community engagement side that's absolutely crucial to getting out there and preventing crime and ensuring that people that come and partake in all that is SG can come and do so knowing that we're going to meet or exceed their needs, certainly from a community engagement perspective. So the video that we're going to present to you here was the video that we came and got authorization from you folks to pay for through some asset forfeiture funding. It was an absolute success. It played at the International Chiefs of Police Convention in Chicago this year. It played for the entire function on wide screens everywhere. So all the police chiefs from around the world and people that were in attendance got a chance to see San Gabriel doing some things that other people aren't doing, and some things that people wish they were doing better. So it was really good exposure for us, and I can't thank you enough for the authorization to get that done. But the people that are in that video are the real stars, and you're going to get a chance to see them through this short video. So if you could cue that up, Marilyn, we appreciate it.
San Gabriel Police Department is committed to understanding the importance of relationships. A relationship with every member of this community. It's no longer going to be us against them. We are here to serve this community, and we take that part of our job very, very seriously. San Gabriel has large city issues, but with a small town feel. Very diverse, very vibrant community. One thing that we understand when I came in is that we didn't have a community engagement arm, as it were. So we created our Community Engagement Bureau and really tried to change the culture and make sure that everybody understood that everything we do is going to be based on solid community partnerships and very good relationships.
In the San Gabriel Police Department, all officers are school resource officers. We are all trained and make daily visits to each school in the San Gabriel Unified School District.
So when they're here, there isn't a sense of fear that what's wrong, why are the police here? It's, oh, they're here. And they're really part of our school community.
Having the police officers here on campus also just makes the kids feel safe. It also makes the parents feel safe.
The word that I want to say is gratitude. We just had a huge celebration, the grand opening of our satellite police station at one of our sites. You can imagine this partnership and the kind of services that we can provide for the community here in San Gabriel.
This satellite station is in the south part of town, which historically has felt underrepresented and underserved by the police department. We host some community programs out of this facility, including our Joints to Job program. It's a progressive program that the police department conceived in an attempt to find those individuals with criminal histories who are searching for opportunities to rehabilitate themselves, to find economic freedom, basically go from felon to functional.
Out here in Southern California, certainly in the San Gabriel Valley, we've had an influx of mental health issues that have come from a myriad of circumstances. And so we've instituted a program of working with a clinician from the Department of Mental Health who comes out and works with our Met officer, and they go out and they try to impact the community or that community positively.
My name is Officer Gonzalez, and my main role is to do mental health evaluations with the community, respond to calls. In addition to that, I also try to find placement for the homeless, provide food, clothing, services regarding sometimes IDs or just social services that they might need.
We get individuals calling us at the station or families reaching out to us, asking us to come and see the loved one. They may not be in crisis, but the family's looking for help. The individual's asking for help. We can refer at that point for counseling services before it escalates to a crisis where now themselves, family members, or the community's in danger. It's about preventative assistance if we can help in any way. The other impact is we're seeing people being educated about mental health, knowing what the symptoms are, not just thinking, oh my God, this person is sick, I don't want to see them. It's more about this person is sick, let me help them, especially family members. We're helping them to support the loved one as well as themselves, and most importantly, keep everybody safe, including the person, the family, and again, the community.
This whole concept of community policing is really effective because it's creating one-on-one personal relationships that is giving those of us who see something the comfort to say something. We don't sort of stay silent in fear. We know that what we have to say can be helpful in the process and that we all have a responsibility to do that.
The culture here is about thinking outside the box.
As service members, we also become a part of the community. So that's more than just going out and enforcing crimes and enforcing laws and writing tickets and doing those things. Those are all elements that are necessary. But here we do some unique things. You'll notice the patch that's on my shoulder, the pink patch that I'm wearing. We are firmly engaged in the fight breast cancer, and we want to be a partner in that. And so every month in the month of October, we don our pink patches and our pink hash marks to ensure that we're supporting those elements. It's very important, and we work with members of the community to do those kind of things.
We understand that relationships are paramount to successful enforcement, successful education, and successful rehabilitation.
We can't arrest our way out of crime. We can't arrest our way out of mental health issues. We have to find other solutions, and that's what we're committed to doing. If we have solid relationships, we can impact a lot of the problems.
We appreciate the efforts of everybody that was in that video, including all those members of the community. But the real winner here is the community. We want to use this as our benchmark to get out there and put this out to folks so they can see what it is we're trying to offer. It is made available. We own the rights to it, so we can do a lot with this particular project and get the word out as to how we're going to impact this community. And the last thing I'll say before I sit down is that any future ideas that we have, we can do these things and keep getting the word out. This professional kind of production, although this one was a little expensive, we can start doing some of these things to make sure we're have the reach that we need to really impact this community positively. So thank you very much. Thank you to the members of the community and the police department and all those involved in the making of the video. Thank you.
That's right. So any folks here from other communities, take note, make sure you go back and tell your own cities. But great job as usual, Chief Harris, and we're very proud of our San Gabriel Police Department and all the things that you guys have been able to accomplish, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. That's not actually even only half of the new programs that you've instituted. So, you know, you guys have a lot of reason to be to brag and to make us proud. So thank you very much. Next, we have public comment.
This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. In an effort to provide everyone with an opportunity to speak tonight, please be aware that all public comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will receive a 30-second warning as you approach the end of your time. As a reminder, please be respectful of all speakers regardless of the position they take on any items. If you wish to address the City Council, we request that you please complete a speaker's request card and hand it to the clerk. When speaking, please state your name for the record.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. We already have several. First, we have Ray Huang. Or is it Rak Huang? Oh, she had to leave already? Oh, okay. Well, if she returns, we also have another public comment section at the end of our agenda. So if she would like to be able to come back, we'll take her comment then. Teresa Eilers?
Hi, good evening. My name is Teresa Eilers. Hi, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Teresa. I work with United Way's Everyone in campaign. We believe that we can solve homelessness. Homelessness is a growing crisis in the city of San Gabriel, the county of Los Angeles, across the nation. And I'm happy to introduce myself to you and hopefully create a partnership with you to work on addressing housing and homelessness issues here in San Gabriel. I'm from South Pasadena. I currently live in Rosemead, so I drive through San Gabriel at least 2 times a day, so thank you for that. I am here specifically to ask you to agendize and hold a special council meeting to address an influx of evictions in San Gabriel, as well as rent increases. I'm sure you're aware of statewide rent control that was recently passed. There was a major flaw in this piece of legislation, unfortunately, which falls onto local jurisdictions where rent control goes into effect the 1st of January 2020. And in the meantime, we've been seeing across the state, across the county, in the San Gabriel Valley, and also here in the city of San Gabriel, increased evictions as well as rent hikes. In January 2020, with statewide rent control, rent will be capped to 5% plus the cost of living, which will be about 8.5%. We've seen throughout the county, in the San Gabriel Valley, rents be increased by 50%. We have seen eviction notices given out in the past few months, some that are still ongoing. If you get a 60-day eviction notice and you were evicted in the middle of October, that means that your eviction, you were forced to get out of your unit around Christmas in the middle of December. And so in the cities of Pasadena, South Pasadena, Alhambra, Duarte, Pomona, I have personally heard residents say that they were given an eviction notice to leave on Christmas Day. And that's if they were given a 60-day notice in October. So I would urge you to take leadership on this issue. This is going on throughout the state. I'm sure you'll see that cities up and down the state of California, and like I mentioned, multiple cities here in San Gabriel Valley have taken action to address this growing issue. And we would just need it to be in place for the remainder of 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eilers. Next, we have Chi Chang.
My name is Chi Chen. I'm here to protest a parking violation ticket. I received such a ticket a little over a year ago. I protested, appealed, and in the hearing, the older gentleman there, I prepared a lot of diagram picture. He didn't even bother to look at it. He just said, okay, the address is 519 West Patilla Street. That's Patilla and Santa Anita, where there is a section of the area that's under redevelopment. The whole area is cordoned off. There's no construction or demolition activity there. My car was parked in a curb, has a little red section where it's not used for enter or exit because it's all cordoned off, fenced off. Okay, and I get such a ticket again. I went to the police department. I see this volunteer officer. She said, I shall come to the city council meeting and present my case. That's why I'm here. The whole process take, sending a written appeal, and my appeal was denied. Then I was sent to a hearing. The hearing resolved very quickly, But to get my $63 back take about 3 months. Okay, that's ridiculous. This whole scenario is a waste of my time, the city's time, everyone involved here. I wish the city make it clear to the parking ticket issuer no longer issue such a ticket because it's going to be dismissed again. I see no point of going through this exercise again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chang. Next, we have Sean McMorris. And Mr. McMorris, would you still like me to note that you've submitted a letter for the record, or will you be
I
speaking
won't
to
be
it?
reading it. I just wanted to submit that for all of you to have. So
Okay.
yeah, please.
So for the record, Mr. McMorris has submitted a letter to the council on this issue previous to the meeting, and the record will reflect it. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm also here to request that the City Council tonight pass in a temporary no-fault eviction moratorium in the city of San Gabriel. Currently, over 24 cities in California have done this because of the gap that Teresa Eiler spoke about that is left between the time that the governor signed AB 1482 and the time it is implemented. Sadly, the current law, when it was signed, has a retroactivity for the rent increases, but not the no-fault eviction portion of the law. Hence, cities are left now to fill in that gap. And I just want to impress upon you that a temporary no-fault moratorium is just a safeguard. It will not affect the many good landlords who are not price gouging or evicting without cause. What does that mean? That means a landlord can still evict someone with cause, which means they're not paying rent, they're damaging the property, or they're doing something illegal there. But when AB 1482 goes into effect, they will have to have just cause to evict. They can't just throw someone out because they want to raise the rent $500. In terms of numbers, this is a real problem for all cities they're struggling with. Most cities don't track evictions, and there are a myriad reasons why people do not want to come forward. To relay one reason why, a friend of mine called me last week and said that their colleague lives in San Gabriel. Their rent was just raised $300. They didn't know if they asked me if San Gabriel had a moratorium on evictions till the first of the year. I said no, but they needed to contact City Hall. She did not feel comfortable doing that because she is an immigrant, and she thought that it might just make a bad situation worse. There are other cultural and language barriers, other reasons people don't want to come forward, fear of landlord retaliation. However, most cities are simply implementing the same template law, Pasadena, South Pasadena, all of them. And what it does is it allows landlords who were evicted without cause, they are allowed to stay in their home as long as they have not left the premises or they are still fighting the eviction in court. That's all this would do. It's a safeguard, regardless of whether there is data for 0 tenants or 500 tenants that are being unjustly evicted. One unjustly evicted family is too much. It affects our school system and it tears our fabric of the community. So I just hope that my friend will convey some of the numbers that the Housing Rights Center just told us today. They had an increase this year from last year. This time last year, there were no calls about rent increases. Just in the month of October alone, they had 4 for San Gabriel. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McMorris. Next, we have Eric Sunada.
Hi, my name is Eric Sunada, and like Teresa Eilers and Sean McMorris, I'm here to ask that the council agendize and call a special meeting to place a temporary moratorium on no-fault evictions, essentially implementing AB 1482 immediately. Housing is, especially for renters, housing is the #1 issue consuming a household's income. It's also the biggest factor in our daily lives that often defines our environment, where we spend our time, our social circles, our level of isolation, opportunities, and roadblocks. Essentially, it's just the biggest influence in our lives. And, we have, on one side, we have people who are asking to stay in their homes, and the other side, we have what I call a false equivalency of a side that's asking for the right to profit. No one's denying that right to profit. AB 1482 allows a 5% rent increase plus cost of living increase, which amounts to 7 to 8% of an increase per year is permitted. So I think it's a false equivalency where we have on one hand people looking at housing as a human right versus speculation and the right to profitability. The statistics in San Gabriel, we have about 52% of the households are renters. And we have a far lesser amount of those that are landlords, and even a far lesser amount that are corporate landlords, which are often the ones that are imposing rent gouging. We had a report from the Housing Rights Center. The executive director reported that last year, in the summer of last year, from July through September, they received 0 reports of high rent increases. And they use high rent increases as a rent gouging measure, as a way that landlords often use as a tactic to impose a no-fault eviction. So we had 0 reports last year from July through September. For the same period this year, we had 4 such reports already. And in October alone, we had 4 more. So already we've had 8 such rent gouging cases filed by the Housing Rights Center. And the executive director there also noted that the number of residents who received rent increases is actually a lot more. It's those only that actually filed the complaint. The number that you hear, 8, you think, is that significant? Oh, trust me, it is statistically significant. And there's absolutely no question that it's humanely significant, morally significant. Just where I live in Alhambra, we had a councilman who actually, when we had people step up saying that they're being evicted, he reduced them to an anecdote. And rightfully so, he got a lot of flack for that and spent the next meeting explaining himself for 10 minutes, adding insult to injury to the people who needed the moratorium passed. And every second counts. If I could just say one more sentence, is that the people who are not protected are the people who have left the premises. So the people who had left the premises today will not be protected. Those who are still in there but fighting the case will be protected. So every second counts. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sonata. Those are all the speakers' request cards that we have for this section. I guess we have one more. Anybody else who would like to address the San Gabriel City Council, please feel free to fill out a card. But as I mentioned, we will also have a public comment section towards the end of the meeting as well. Mr. Paul Padilla.
2 weeks ago, I came before you and requested that you do an urgency ordinance to get this done, to protect renters in San Gabriel from being kicked out of their homes right before or right after Christmas. I don't know about you all, but I grew up and still root for Tiny Tim and his family, and George Bailey and his family. Not Ebenezer Scrooge, not Mr. Potter. Urgency ordinance isn't on the agenda tonight. 2 of you on this dais have asked me to bring forward people or stories from renters who have been screwed in San Gabriel. I just arrived late. I don't know if any came. But I don't think San Gabriel I think it's wishful thinking to hope that San Gabriel is the only city in the state of California without a single unscrupulous landlord. We know they exist in every city, in every town, in every state, and in every country. So I'm calling on you to provide this city the leadership it deserves, and poor people the leadership they deserve, to represent the most vulnerable people that you were elected to serve, not to represent rich landlords, developers, realtors, or any other such campaign contributors, perhaps, to your city council campaigns. I believe in running corporate free, supporting corporate free candidates. San Gabriel has a lot of poor, immigrant, and low-income people, afraid, unwilling, or unable to come forward to tell their tales to you. That should not be a prerequisite for you as public officials to take action to help them. The template's been laid. Cities across this state and across this valley have acted, while San Gabriel hasn't. As Dr. King said, it's never too late to do the right thing. Now is always the right time to do the right thing. So it's better late than never. We can make this retroactive. I urge you to get this done, because tenants can also be kicked out on just 30 days notice if they've been in a place less than a year, not just 60. So staff can just copy and paste a template from another city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Padilla. Is there anybody else member of the public who would like to address the San Gabriel City Council? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment, and I'll note for those who are here for the moratorium, for advocating for a moratorium, that we will be taking it up during council comments at the end of the meeting. If you want to stick around for that, you can do that, or you can watch it online. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the City Council or audience requests separate discussion.
Anybody with any comments? No? I have a couple of quick corrections to the minutes under consent item A. So looking back at my notes for the minutes of November 5th, under approval of agenda order, I think that actually the motion was made by Councilmember Harrington and seconded by Councilmember Liao. And then on page 3, under E, consent item E, there's not really a description of what happened there. That was actually an item that was pulled by Councilmember Liao for separate discussion. Should just, I think, say whatever, Councilmember Liao asked questions related to X, Y, and Z, and then I think it was he who moved, and then Vice Mayor Menchaca who seconded for that item separately, and it passed 5-0. There's no results stated in the minutes of that agenda item. So, with that, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
As amended?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion second. Let's go to the board.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is new business, City of San Gabriel analysis of parking enforcement services. Presentation will be made by Captain Fabian Valdez.
Careful, Captain Valdez. We already know there's one person here who's who'll be addressing you later. Just joking. Don't worry about it. Please proceed.
Okay. If you hear my heart beating, I'm a little nervous. So
don't be nervous, Captain. You're perfectly safe here. I'll protect you.
I appreciate that. You're a pretty big guy, so that's cool. So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Menchaca, and members of the City Council. Police Department staff was recently directed by the City Council to review the city's current parking enforcement contract model and compare it to the possibility of establishing our own in-house parking enforcement program using department employees. Additionally, a request for proposal was also issued as part of the review. No proposal by outside vendors were received. Based on the research conducted and information obtained during the review, staff recommends that the City Council continue the current model of contract service for parking enforcement efforts. And at this time, I will field any questions.
Short and sweet. Great. Are there any questions from the council? No questions?
Yes. Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Leal.
I was hoping my
One
Jedi
correction.
mind trick would work, but I guess
easy,
it didn't.
Easy. The first page, I guess the contract was Intercom. I think it's since November 2005.
Yes, sir.
So that was a mistake. It says 2015.
Actually, we went back to 2015, but Intercon has been with the department probably about over 10 years when we first did the initial RFP.
I think it's 2005 we signed the contract. I remember very well because I came here to protest one of the citation our disabled seniors got. You remember at the Focus Plaza, and this person is hiding, in a parking lot. So if the disabled person that pull in front of a restaurant, and they have to get him out because it's on wheelchair, and they will give him citation. The car will block them and give him the ticket, and the ticket is $500. So just within 2 hours of time, he can give out 10 citations, during the Sunday afternoon. But anyway, that was in the past, and this person is gone. But I think what I'm trying to say is, because we have Mr. Chen here to talk about his tickets, and actually, if you violate, you have to pay, But there are unjusted tickets. For instance, I have 5, and these are the overnight parking stickers. I mentioned them many times. And they think, oh, this is 1 inch higher from whatever requirement. So I got tickets, and I pay. Another one is I got a lot of complaints is, they park along the curb, and then your wheel, remember, has to measure less than 18 inches. So they did and measure it. And they get tickets. If it's 20 inches, they got a ticket. Another one, I think it's pretty common because a lot of people don't know how to do the parallel parking. And if it's not parking within the marked spaces, if it's over, you get a ticket. In a way, we receive more parking violation revenue. I would say, 10 years ago, we received about over 1 million. But lately, I guess, we look at the numbers. I was just trying to figure out why year 17 and 18, that reduced about half. Okay, so 492,000. That's what we got. And what is the reason? Because we're still hiring the same company to do the job. So,
yes, sir. That was during the time, if I'm not mistaken, where we had a lapse, and we were trying to negotiate with Intercon a new contract. So there was about 3 to 4 months where we did not have contract services with Intercon. As such, we at the police department were doing our best to go out and enforce parking violations.
Okay, so that's the reason. And also looking at the contract, because we still have contract till March 2021. And the numbers, you know, the fees they charge us is like $100,000 more each year. And I just cannot see why, because the rate increase is based on the living cost adjustment, and that's a minimal. But another reason, I think maybe because the minimum wages increase, but would that make that much difference, 100,000 a year?
There are several variables that go into determining what the company is going to charge us to contract with them. These variables do include a wage, a living wage, increase in health insurance, workman's comp, and other variables that ultimately go into determining what price they're going to charge.
Okay. Well, the whole idea for this study, I think we brought it up. We want, you know, the city of, well, our police department look into if we can do our own parking enforcement, right? So from this study, it looks like we just, I wouldn't say can't afford, but it just doesn't make sense to have an in-house. But I'm looking at other smaller cities like ours, for instance, South El Monte. You know, they also have their own parking enforcement. And I'm just trying to figure out why we cannot do the same.
If I'm not mistaken, South El Monte is contracted with the sheriff's department. So they'll have a different structure with respect to costs and operating costs for public safety. As such, not having their own police department, those cost variables will obviously be different than a municipality that has its own police department like us.
No, yeah, of course, you know, the police they contract with the county sheriff, but then they have in-house parking enforcement. Well, yeah, I'm just trying to compare the small cities. You know, for instance, Alhambra, Monterey Park, they all do within their police departments to enforce this parking violations. But you know, I look at the number that we have, or the staff that prepare. So the cost is $286,400. Yeah, if we hire people to do it.
Yes.
And just one car. I think minimum we need 2 cars, but here we just say, okay, we'll just need 1 car. But I look at the income. So for instance, the revenue for 18 and 19 is 714,000. Okay. And yeah, if we have that kind of revenue and we just only pay 286,000, what's the netting about 500,000?
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the chart is clearly explained. The parking citation payments are what we, or what Phoenix, because we also have to process the tickets.
Right.
There's the enforcement part, but then there's going to be the record-keeping part.
Yes.
So when we issue, or when Intercon issues parking citations, those parking citations go directly to a company that manages and records those parking sites. The payments that people directly pay that company is the $714,000. We get an additional $150,000 where people mail those into us. The Franchise Tax Board also provides us with payments that are in arrears, or with registered owners that don't pay parking violations. So, and then the court charges us, as you can see here, $187,000. So all of those numbers put together generate a revenue of 705. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, for instance, the case that we're talking about, 2018-19, we're netting 473,000.
Yes.
And we are paying, the intercom contract is 167,000.
Yes.
Which is, well, about $100,000 less than in-house.
Yes.
So still, we can make maybe 300,000.
The purpose is not to make money. The purpose is to ensure, because one of the issues that we have, or one of the complaints that we receive at the police department, are people or residents complaining about people blocking their driveway, parking, restricting traffic flow during certain times of the day. There are some people that actually like the overnight parking restrictions because it allows the street to look clean, or we as police officers can detect when a car looks out of place or a vehicle is stolen. So with that being said, the purpose is to ensure traffic is flowing in the most efficient and effective manner, as well as ensuring that at night we are out there looking for vehicles that look suspicious, or attempting to recover stolen vehicles, as those officers did receive rewards prior to this presentation. So with that being said, it's not revenue generation, it's parking enforcing that we're doing.
Okay. So from the study that we have, what is current situation? I mean, we gonna continue with the intercom contract for another 3 years, or what's
the police department staff recommends that we do. One of the variables that is unknown is if it's going to take some startup time. If we were to decide to go out on our own and do our own parking enforcement, there's going to be a lag time of between 6 months to a year recruiting people, training them, getting them ready to go out into the field. That doesn't include attrition, as some of these individuals may become police officers or may move on to other lines of work. So hiring 5 people doesn't mean we're always going to have 5 people, which will affect the our enforcement ability as well. One of the biggest issues that we deal with at the police department is parking and traffic. So with respect to consistency as well as cost effectiveness, probably intercom, or we recommend intercom.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Costanzo.
Thank you, Mayor Pooh. I just want to thank staff. Intercon has not always been somebody I thought highly of, but I appreciate your time and effort for going out there and analyzing our current services and possible services. You sometimes think grass is greener on the other side, and it's evident by this report that we're in a pretty good place with Intercon. So again, I just want to say thanks, staff, for the time and effort put forth in bringing this forward to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just note that the current contract ends in June 30th, 2021. And for the members of the public, current cost of this contract is $239,000. It escalates to $254,000, and then again in the 2020-2021 fiscal year to $271,000. So it becomes pretty close to the annual estimated cost of bringing this program in-house, which is $286,000. That doesn't include, however, the $50,000 estimated startup cost. So I would suggest, if it pleases the council, that maybe we revisit this analysis in June of next year, so that it provides for that 1 year lead time to ramp up and figure things out if we choose to bring the program in-house. That way, but at that time too, I think we'll have a clearer picture of our financial situation, because switching over is, as Captain Valdez mentioned, is not going to be just an easy thing to flip a switch, because during that transition period, we'll essentially be paying for 2 programs. If we have Intercon enforcing, and then we're hiring and training and so forth, then we would need to have the funds to do that, and it would have to be somehow allocated in the budget. So I don't know, is there a consensus of the council to revisit this perhaps in June of next year? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding heads, and so the recommended action here is basically just to continue current model. I don't think we need a motion or anything, do we?
Continuing the existing contract?
Right.
Yeah. So No motion
Oh, you
required.
stop comments? Okay. All right, Councilmember Harrington, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my comments are along the lines of where you were going, but I did have a couple questions. One for Fabian. I noticed that you said you didn't receive any responses to the RFP. Did you get any feedback as to why? I mean, I know the report says that it wasn't financially feasible for the vendors. Did they say why it's not? Is it just too small, or what's?
Yes, it's not economically viable. They basically said for the amount of hours and the service that we would like to contract, it's not economically feasible for them or attractive for them to bid the contract.
And they saw the escalation, and they wouldn't come back and revisit that possibly when it gets a little, because to me it looks like it's escalating quite a bit. I mean, I see the costs going up. What is it, to 200, and next year is a pretty big jump. I don't think we're going to have a giant jump in enforcement. I think that we're going to have relatively static numbers. We're not increasing, the number of officers out there. So I don't know why it's. I mean, I know why it's going up. There's a lot of fixed costs that they're covering. But have you asked them, would they come back and potentially rebid this again, or?
Well, it was based on the number of hours and personnel we wanted servicing our city. We asked for 18 hours of service, and for them it wasn't economically viable to do that. So,
I mean, at any price, because it is a bid.
Correct.
We didn't give them a price. We said, hey, how much would you charge to do this? I mean, if they came back and said, 300,000, I mean, that would be economically viable. But I'm just wondering why they wouldn't even give us a cost. They just don't even want that's not enough hours for them to bother?
It was not enough hours for them at this time.
Okay. And then I noticed that the Phoenix Group, their processing fee, is it a set fee, or is it a percent? I mean, is it a percentage? Do they have like a set dollar amount, or how are they billing us on that? Because it seems to go up. The amount it goes up is not proportional to the amount of citations we're collecting. It doesn't look like it.
That again varies with the number of staff required to actually process our citation, the amount of hours that they use to process our citations, that fluctuates again month to month. And so overall, with respect to the Phoenix Group, they charge us a certain amount every year, and the last 2 years we don't know what they're going to charge us yet, because we haven't sent. Obviously, we don't know how many tickets we're going to write in the future, but as of now, prices are increasing with them too.
Okay, yeah, because I just noticed it wasn't proportional. I was trying to figure out where. I mean, it's 1 year it's 37. The next year it's going up more than the revenue is. So I'm just trying to figure how that.
Again, looking at 2018, that was when we had about 4 months where we were not contracting with Intercon. As such, the volume of tickets that we were sending them was not the same.
I know it's not the volume. I'm talking proportion, though. I mean, it's not that means it's not a flat fee, like per ticket.
Councilman Harrington, we'd be more than happy to come back to the council with an informational item on how Phoenix charges those tickets. We don't have that information here at the table.
And I think, I have a few other questions, but I think you've answered them, so I'm good with that. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Machaka.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Councilmember Harrington mentioned about the limited level of service. I can't believe we're the only city that only needs 18 hours or whatever those parameters were. I'm just curious, what do other cities do? I mean, if they're not, are they all with Intercon, or there has to be other services out there?
So if we look at page 3 of the staff report, and where it says staff also contacted several surrounding law enforcement agencies.
I saw that.
If you look at Monterey Park and El Monte does their own. They do their own traffic enforcement. The issue with El Monte and Monterey Park is many times those cadets or those community service officers may be used to handle or supplement patrol, and so they're not exactly doing parking enforcement. They're not directly focused on parking enforcement. Whereas cities like Covina, Azusa, Glendora, Laverne, Arcadia, Pasadena, and San Marino all contract with Intercon. Intercon specifically focuses on parking enforcement.
Okay, so really it seems like they have the monopoly on that type of service.
Yes, they are a global security company.
Okay. And then also the same question between the Intercon contract fee and the Phoenix Group. I mean, if you go year by year, there's definitely some irregularities. It goes up for the fee, the contract fee, then Phoenix Group goes down. I mean, it should be going the same direction. So there is probably some other activity taking place. So I would really appreciate that analysis too. Okay, that's all.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right. So we will receive and file the report. Thank you very much for the information. And I guess we will revisit perhaps in the middle of next year, near the middle of next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. Next item, please.
Los Angeles County Fire Department Feasibility Study. Presentation will be made by Interim Fire Chief Stephen Wallace.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. Here for the main event. Just give me a second. And for those who have filled out speakers request cards for this item, we will do public comment on this item after the staff report. Ready?
Sure.
Okay, please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Pooh, Vice Mayor Menchaca, and members of council. Steve Wallace, Acting Fire Chief, here tonight to talk about the Los Angeles County Fire Department feasibility study that we've been hearing so much about. Back in 2018, council may remember you authorized an initial feasibility study after we had a standards of cover report that said we suggested we look at alternative service models and best practices for our service delivery. That feasibility study came back, and in early 2019, we authorized the conversion cost study. Tonight, we'll be discussing those results and initiating a first discussion on this. You may be able to tell here, Paula Chamberlain did help me out with this PowerPoint, as her signature animations are in here. First thing I'll give you is a little background on the current fire department. The city's provided professional fire protection, professional paid fire protection, prevention, and emergency medical services since 1932. In 1998, we added paramedic services. We're currently housed in 2 fire stations that are very well placed within the city to meet response time goals. And we're currently operating with 36 authorized positions and an average call volume of between 2,800 and 3,000 calls a year. That 3,000 number we are breaking regularly, and it continues to increase. Interesting note, in 1949, we operated with 46 positions, and at that time they had an average call volume of 419 calls a year. Looking into how that was funded and staffed, I can't really tell. I can't find records that are detailing that, but I suspect that there may be some civil defense personnel in there, given that we were coming out of the Second World War, and that may have been a holdover from that. As I said, our current fire stations are very well placed and meet the 4-minute and 20-second response time goals that we've set to all areas of the city. Given that, a reduction in one station will significantly impact our response times. So the service models. On the left of the column, you'll see San Gabriel's current service model. We currently have on duty a response staff of 9 every day, plus 3 administrative personnel. The way that's broken out is a paramedic engine at Station 51, which is known as the South Station. Paramedic engine 51 has a captain, an engineer, and a firefighter paramedic. We also have 1 rescue ambulance, which is a paramedic resource as well. It also has cross-trained firefighter paramedics. It is staffed with 2 cross-trained firefighter paramedics. We have 1 division chief, which is basically the shift commander, a fire chief, and 1 executive assistant. Station 52 is a single engine house, and it houses one paramedic engine with a minimum of one firefighter, one captain, and one engineer. Generally, the firefighter is the paramedic, but as we started our paramedic service in 1998 and required all of our new employees to be paramedics, we are at a point where almost all the employees are both cross-trained firefighters and paramedics through all ranks. We still employ a civilian deputy fire marshal at City Hall. The county gave us a couple of models on our request. We asked for basically an apples-to-apples comparison, just to keep this even across the board. And what they came back with was, again, a paramedic assessment engine. In that case, staffed with a firefighter, paramedic, a captain, and an engineer, and one paramedic squad. And the difference there is in the squad is it doesn't have transport capability. It still has all the same paramedic equipment. It has a significant amount more of rescue equipment, and it has a flexibility that if an engine is on scene and determines this is a BLS level call or a basic life support call, not an ALS level or paramedic level call, they can cancel that squad and use a BLS ambulance for transport, then freeing up a paramedic resource for the area. Station 52 would have one paramedic engine, again consisting of a firefighter, paramedic, an engineer, and a captain. This model, it gives you a daily response staffing of 8. It also includes fire prevention personnel, which are shared through the area. We do have we would have one dedicated fire inspector, and then there's also a plan check person and a prevention captain that oversees the area. If you look at option B, you'll see that it's basically the same thing. What's different is the fire engine that would be in Station 51 is a BLS engine. It doesn't have the paramedic capabilities that we currently have. So it would have one captain, one engineer, and an EMT level firefighter. A paramedic squad would also be based out of that station, which again is similar staffing to the rescue ambulance we have, but with no transport capability. With the squad and the no transport capability, the county has operating areas with BLS ambulances set up. We also have the possibility of contracting ambulance service or maintaining our own BLS service, and we'll touch on that later in the presentation. Option B also includes the same prevention staff as included in option A. Option A most closely resembles our existing city services. Option B will eliminate the paramedic and replace it with an EMT. You'll see a cost difference in that coming up. It's a negligible difference really in the big picture of about $100,000, but it takes a valuable paramedic out of the program. Both of these options eliminate the fire chief, they eliminate the division chief, the deputy fire marshal, and executive assistant. The fire chief function will be filled by an assistant chief from the county, which is based in Rosemead at Fire Station 4, and functions in the administrative capacity and interaction with the council and city manager. And the division chiefs will be filled by a battalion chief post position, which is housed these days at Fire Station 47 in Temple City. The executive assistant function will no longer be needed and is provided through the overhead in the county. And the deputy fire marshal is covered by the LA County Fire Prevention Bureau. So a couple of questions about what happens when you would enter or explore entering into a contract with the county. So the current employees, equipment, facilities, they have to go somewhere. Sworn San Gabriel Fire Department employees have the ability to blanket or transfer into Los Angeles County, seek other employment, or retire. For them to blanket in and transfer, they do still have to pass a background investigation as well as meet the medical qualifications of the LA County Fire Department. So it's not a slam dunk and guarantee that everybody will get there. Non-sworn employees such as our executive assistant do have the option to transfer and be blanketed into the fire department, but that's based on the negotiation that we would have with the county's need, and that employee would go over and serve a 1-year probationary period if they decided to come with. Employees moving out of the San Gabriel Fire Department, moving to the Los Angeles County Fire Department, leave PERS and become members of the county's retirement system, or LACERA. All the unfunded accrued liability remains with the city at that point. A lot of our fire equipment, including the expensive pieces of apparatus, would be transferred into the Los Angeles County Fire Department, but would require supplemental funding for the conversion to county standards or upgrades based on the conversion cost study and the evaluation at the time of the transfer. Finally, the 2 fire stations would remain in service, and the county would lease them for $1 a year, and would be responsible for minor repairs up to $50,000 a year per facility. So $100,000 combined for the city stations, which we budget right now $15,910 to cover 2 stations for a year. Are there other options to annexation into the county? There are, and we're looking at that right now. I'd like to come back in early 2020 and give you the results of a study at several other service models. Also the current status of where we are with our staffing, recruitment, and retention, and give you an outline of a 5-year strategic plan should we stay the San Gabriel Fire Department. A few options that are currently being looked at are converting our rescue ambulances to a squad and contract with the BLS company, with the idea that that frees up our paramedic resources to run more calls. Another option would be to staff a second squad. If we remember in the 2016 conversion, or in the Standards of Cover survey, it discovered that our rescue ambulance is severely overused and is far past its capabilities. We've also are going to consider converting engine companies to paramedic engines and then having a BLS transport model, very similar to what Glendale does right now. We still maintain a fleet of BLS ambulances, and we'll still have to have employees operating those ambulances, but that's something we'll look at. And then one other sort of more immediate need is a way to acquire and place a ladder truck or quint apparatus into service within the city. And then finally, we will always look at consolidation with other departments. So we got to look at what's needed to keep up with the growth and the development in the city and the potential growth and development. Right now, our fire department relies heavily on automatic aid agreements with surrounding cities and Verdugo to provide us coverage. On a daily basis, ambulances and rigs from Monterey Park, Alhambra, and San Marino are coming in and running our calls because we don't cover the call load just on our own. There's about 48% of the time we have multiple calls running in the city, and of that 48%, 26% of those incidents were attended to completely by outside agencies. Given the increase in calls throughout the area, this kind of coverage is not sustainable. In a serious emergency, there's probably going to be issues with rigs coming in from outside other cities. In the case of an earthquake or a very sentinel event, the Unified Response Agreement, which we were a part of, is suspended, and at that point we're on our own. We're also anticipating growth in population, more density in larger buildings, so service enhancements are definitely necessary. At the moment, our 2 primary needs are a second rescue ambulance and placing a ladder truck into service. Our immediate challenges faced by the fire department are really in recruitment and retention. At the moment, we have 6 firefighter paramedic positions that are vacant. The fire chief, 1 division chief, 1 captain, and engineers are now all filled at acting level. And this is partly due to the city's financial condition. We've been trying to assist by keeping our staff at minimum levels. And another part of this is that the large agencies are just doing unprecedented recruitments of lateral employees. Pasadena is losing 14 to the LA County. San Marino's just lost 2. Montebello just lost 2/3 of their firefighters on the floor. I believe it was 15 or 18 to the county. Glendale lost 9 of 19 in their current tower, in their current academy, to the county. So it's a challenge to recruit and retain very, very qualified employees. Unfortunately, due to the financial position, and much like every department in the city is experiencing, our salaries and benefits are no longer competitive to the market in the surrounding cities. The next part of this presentation is going to get into the financial analysis, and with that, I'd like to ask Paula Chamberlain to give me a hand.
Good evening. I'm just going back. Just a little history on the fee-for-service versus being part of the district. Prior to Prop 13, the fire district levied its own property taxes, as well the city did. But when Prop 13 passed, our ability to increase property taxes was restricted, and that 1% that was passed was divvied up to all of the agencies based on what they were collecting at that time. There are 40 cities in the district that were in the district prior to the passage of Prop 13, and 7 newly incorporated cities that do not pay for district services. Part of their property tax pays for the district service. They're not fee for service. The 7 newly incorporated ones were actually part of county, incorporated county, unincorporated county, that became cities and were absorbed into the district. So our nearby cities of Baldwin Park, Duarte, Rosemead, South El Monte, Temple City don't pay for the fire services that they receive. It's part of the property tax that was part of the 1% that was diverted back in under Prop 13. So they do still receive a part of the property tax for the city, but then part of it also went to the county. The county says that they receive about 17% for fire district services, 17% of the 1% levy. They also have a special tax that they approved, or the voters approved in 1977. That's currently at $70.10 for a single family parcel, and it is a higher rate structure for multifamily commercial properties. Vacant properties are also assessed at a different rate. So after Prop 13 passed, 12 cities have joined the district, and they are considered fee for service. So their property tax doesn't go towards paying the district. They're billed for a fee, the same as what's before you tonight. Just as for comparison, while the district receives approximately 17% of the 1%, the city of San Gabriel receives approximately 10.3% of the 1%, and so our property tax is about $5.7 million for 2019-20. Some cost comparisons here. We took the chart that was in your staff report and kind of moved it around a little bit, trying to make it a little easier to read. So option A with the county is $7.57 million. Option B, 7.5. The city's budget as adopted was $8.96 million. We take out the $1.5 million for the PERS UAL, the unfunded accrued liability, because that stays with the city whether we are with the county or stay with the city. That's a fee that we have to pay to CalPERS for our past liabilities. We add back in $150,000 for a permanent chief because what's included in that $8.9 million budget is only for half a year. So to be able to compare apples to apples, we've made it a full year's staffing cost. We've taken out $84,000 of ambulance billing fee, which is included in that $8.9 million. Again, if we are not if we're not providing that service, we wouldn't get that cost. So to take it out for comparison, we took the $84,000 out. And then the fleet net cost is $125,000. The fire department pays, I think it's around $250,000 for their fleet costs, but only $125,000 of that is for their actual fuel and parts and things, and the other things are the overhead, the employees that would stay with the city. So again, that remains as a city cost. So the part that can be truly attributable to the fire department comes $7.4 million. The city also receives revenue from the fire department services. We receive $805,000 in ambulance revenue right now. We actually, if you look in your budget document and look in that other chart, it's $889,000, but out of that $889,000, we're paying that $84,000 billing fee, so it's a net $805,000. Fire fees, we receive about $400,000 a year. The county says that we would retain those services or those fees, but there would be a 5% pass-through charge. So on the county side, it goes down to $380,000, and ours stays at $400,000. Also in the budget for the $8.9 million is $400,000 of reimbursements. So there's an expense for it, and we've also taken out the revenue other side of it, again for comparison purposes. The city would not get the reimbursement costs because there'd be nothing to reimburse if we went to county services. So netting all those things out, we get to the net cost of the option A of $6.38 million, option B of $6.2 million, and the city service of $5.8 million. Should also be noted in the little asterisks there, the $805,000 and the $308,000 could go down at an amount that we don't know right now. If they do less ambulance services, if they are not transporting as much as we do, those revenues would go down. But for comparison purposes, we left them at 100%. So if we're off, it's on the error on the side of the city. Then we get down to the general fund costs. We have the retirement tax that pays for the unfunded liability and the normal cost of our PERS. If we went to the county, they could not, it would still pay for the unfunded liability, but it would not be paying for that normal cost. So when we take out and try to get down to what the general fund actually pays for the fire department, that goes to $5 million. So on the right-hand side, there's a little box there for your option A cost for over the city cost. The annual cost, if you're just looking straight expense without any revenue, $157,000. We do know we get all that revenue, so if you look at the net cost and if we apply the same revenue amount to the county that we're now getting as the city, the difference goes to $577,000. And when you combine in the amount that we actually can pay out of the retirement trust fund, the difference goes to $1.3 million. I also note that the $8.9 million does not include the $47,000 budget that the council approved for the EOC Center and disaster preparedness. There's other cost considerations, as we've stated in your report. The conversion costs, which are detailed in the last part of your report. The county estimates about $2.4 million for the conversion costs. Staff estimates, after they've reviewed it, that we may be able to get that down to $2 million. And the county has said that they will finance that over a 3-year period, so that's still over $700,000 a year that we would have to finance in addition to their contract cost. Again, the CalPERS unfunded liability, the safety plan, it's police and fire. CalPERS cannot break out fire from police. Excuse me, carries a $53.5 million UAL, and none of that transfers with the county contract. Workers' compensation and liability, because we were in the JPIA, we have already funded the claims that are known, that are out there. So we have not included any workers' compensation cost or liability going forward. However, we do know that workers' comp sometimes go into the future. Claims that aren't now known now can still occur 10 years in the future, and the city would still be expected to pay part of those claims. Taking a look at the annual fee cap, the fee each year is capped at 5.5% for the first 5 years. The 6th year is the average of the last 4-year actual increases plus 1%. Thereafter, it's average of the last 5 years of actual increases plus 1%. The annual fee is increased, or the annual fee increase is capped, but the cost is not. So it increases, if it increased 6%, we would only have to pay the equivalent of 5.5%, but that extra amount that was actually charged or spent by the county and not covered by our fee rolls over to the next year. So it just rolls over from 1 year to the next until our fee gets high enough and their expenses are not meeting that cap that we start paying that accrued liability to the county off each year. I sent my little chart that I have you to the county finance staff to make sure that I had my analogy right, and they said they understood why I used the high numbers that I did for my analogy there, and it did show how the rollover works accurately, but they did say that their increases over the last 10 years have only been about 3.8%. They also looked at our financial condition, and in the report it does say that given the city's current financial position, they would require a means of ensuring payment to the fire district that they would require before they would recommend annexation of the city. And so I called again and asked their finance people and asked what is means of ensuring payment, and they couldn't tell me at the time. They said that it would be a mutually agreed insurance between the city and the auditor controller, and that would be determined at a later date. And I will turn it back over to the chief.
Thanks, Paula. Our recommendations tonight, given the financial uncertainty in the city, given the uncertainty of the proposed sales tax measure, is we recommend that you receive and file the report and defer this decision until the sales tax measure results are known. I think until we have a prudent picture of what the city's financial picture is, it's best to hold a decision on this issue. There are alternatives to that tonight as well, and if there's a support in the council, we can vote to move forward in negotiations with the county for services. And alternatively, if there's not the support, we can move to end the consolidation process tonight as well. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm here, and Paul, I believe, is here for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Paul. It's obviously an issue of critical importance to the community, and so we'll do a public comment now. If there are any members of the community who would like to address the council on this issue based on what you've just seen, please come forward, fill out a speaker's request card. I'll also call for that again at the end of the speaker's request cards that we have already, which there are several. We have 13 in total at the moment. So I will now open public comment for this item. First speaker's request card is Helen Yuen.
My name is Helen Wan and Mary Poo and council members. I personally was entrapped in the elevator in this new development at Padilla and Mission Drive. It's a 3-year-old building, three-year-old Schindler A33 hydraulic elevator. I was in the elevator and trapped for an hour and a half, no cell reception, and I had pushed the call button, and Schindler customer service is in Ohio. They were totally incompetent. So bottom line is they said for the technician to come out would be 3 hours, meaning I have to wait in the elevator for 3 hours. So I told the customer service representative to call my husband to the elevator to push the button open, and also my husband couldn't open it, so he called 911. So that's when San Gabriel Fire Department along with Alhambra Fire Department came, and only Alhambra Fire Department had the elevator tool kit, and they were going up and down. They brought the elevator shaft to the bottom level, and they used the elevator kit to open the door, but was going up and down, couldn't find the shaft, the door lever to open the second door, to open the door to let me out. So it took an hour and a half. So I'm just saying that with all the new developments that are going on in San Gabriel, there definitely needs to be a lot more resources. I mean, just alone, Alhambra Fire Department had only one elevator kit. So if you can imagine in case of an emergency or a power outage, what do? We only have one elevator kit. So I made a visit over to Battalion Chief Bray in Alhambra. Last week he said they got the training from a company that comes to train all the different types of elevators. Finally, they bought 4 toolkits for the elevator toolkit. So I'm just saying, I think we need to somehow align with the county fire department because they're better, more equipped, they have more resources. If we don't have the financial means, I was willing to do some kind of fundraiser to raise some money, go after companies and elicit donations or something, or reach out or something like that, because I see all these developments going on in San Gabriel, and it's just, I mean, we're totally lacking a lot of things. I myself was a hotel guest at the Sheraton Hotel, and that also is a new development, new elevator. So, you know, there's a lot going on right now in the city. So I think that we seriously need to look into this in terms of how we can be better equipped with all the limited resources that we have. So I recommend or, you know, concur with the fire chief.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yuan. Actually, I neglected to mention that same rules in this public comment period apply as general public comment. So I'll ask our city clerk to just read that again, not because of you, just because it reminded me that, you know, just to remind the public and also other speakers.
In an effort to provide everyone with an opportunity to speak, please be aware that all public comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will receive a 30-second warning as you approach the end of your time. As a reminder, please be respectful of all speakers regardless of the position they take on any items.
Thank you. Next we have Ms. Karina Rivera. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi.
Most of you know me, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
My name is Karina Rivera, and I'm a resident of San Gabriel for the past 8 years. Also, family owns a business here in San Gabriel. So, having the business in the unincorporated area of San Gabriel, but being a resident of San Gabriel, I've had the opportunity to deal with both the San Gabriel Fire Department and the LA County Department. My goal here is to talk about my number one priority, which is the safety of myself and my family. Living in San Gabriel, I have educated myself on the current financial climate of the city, as well as the fire department. I understand that the current fire department right now is understaffed and doesn't have the resources to take care of an emergency, and I don't want to have to wait for another city to come and rescue my family if there's a fire or if something major happens. And I've noticed there's a lot of new construction going on in San Gabriel, so I'm wondering, how is our fire department going to handle that? I've heard other residents talk about the emotional part of it, which I totally understand because we're a close-knit community. But I think this goes a little further than that. And my question is, how are we going to fix this? There's also a lot of repairs that need to be made on the streets. Police Station 2 was supposed to be repaired. It hasn't been repaired. I don't know how the city got to this dire financial situation that it is now, but if we would take into consideration the LA County that's willing to help at least our fire department, I think that that would mean a lot to the residents of San Gabriel. Because we have our families. I want to stay here forever. I want my kids to grow up here, you know? And so it is really important for me to have them feel safe in their own city, and not have to wait for San Marino to show up, or you know, or Monterey Park to show up if they're trapped in the house or something, or you know. So it's really important. So I know most of you personally, so just this, and you know that I'm not a person that comes out and speaks publicly a lot. So this is really important to me, and that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. The next 11 cards that I have here are from members of the fire department. My question to you collectively is, are you all on the same side, and would you like to be called up together? I was previously informed that you would like to be able to sort of chain your 3-minute, you know, comments back to back to back to back. Is that the case for all of those? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. So, City Clerk, we will handle this like, you know, each person will have 3 minutes, but I will call them all up at one time right now, okay? So the next speakers will be Kirk Golterman, Antonio Negrete, John Atkins, Philip Aparis, Hrog Javlagian, Quang Tran, Chris Bagley, Jacob Gustafson, Michael Rebellato, Greg Kernodle, and Sean Irwin. So each person will have 3 minutes. Please be mindful and watch the you know, little device there. It'll turn yellow when you have 30 seconds, and then red when each person's 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you very much. My name is Kirk Golterman. I'm the president of the Firefighter Association Local 2197. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for this report. It's very intense, it's dense, it's a lot of material, but it's a big decision. Part of that decision is going to be made by you right now. We hope that you'll look at all the information. It's very important to look at. First and foremost, I'd like to talk about our past service, where initially we had 2-man engines and we had BLS ambulances. We changed and went to ALS service in 1998, but along with that we went to Verdugo Dispatch. When we did that, we got the direct access to our neighbors next door, their resources. And that part of that is unified response. Our utilization, as the chief mentioned, is very high. I'd like to think of the Verdugo dispatch and unified response as an efficient way of responding to our needs. However, it's a limited partnership. If and when we have a major disaster, as Chief Wallace talked about with an earthquake, we're going to be on our own. And being on our own is not going to be good. If we were to look at going with LA County Services, we would be entering into a system that has 174 stations. 6 stations would be within 5 miles. And that does not include the 2 stations that are within the city. We would have 47 on-duty staff members. That means 141 positions. So if you can imagine San Gabriel Fire Department having 141 positions, I don't think we could ever afford that. So with that also, I'd like to talk about the savings that were touched upon but were not quantified. Specifically, work comp, general liabilities, pension liabilities, and legal liabilities. We understand that all of these do not trend in a straight line. We feel that the most effective method would be have a 5-year snapshot of actual expenditures to give the council a better idea of the actual expenses. And also, if we were to stay with San Gabriel City, we would be looking at additional costs going forward. Again, what the chief talked about, meeting the job market, adding an RA at Station 52, which would be additional 6 positions. Also, if we add the truck company, it would add 12 positions. And currently, our infrastructure, our stations, our newest station is only 60 years old. And I say only as a joke. Our older station is 70 years old. They are both greatly in need of renovation. The firefighters have worked very hard at renovating them and fixing them whenever we can. However, they are in need of basically starting from scratch. So with that, I'd like to say we really hope that you'll look at all the information because you're making a big decision, and we feel that the best decision is to go with Los Angeles County consolidation because you're getting a bargain,
Okay.
what I talked about.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. DeGratt.
Good evening, Mayor Pooh, members of the council. With all due respect, I respectfully ask your permission to defer my time to firefighter Golterman.
Okay.
Thank you. So with that, I would like to add also.
Sorry, quick question. Will all of you be doing that? Yes. Okay. All right then. Just keep track of how many. This is the second 3-minute segment, so there's 11 total. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, to be clear, I'm almost finished. I was hustling to try to get it done in 3 minutes. However, so with that, I would like to say that it's a very important decision. We hope you closely consider it. We think that this would be the best choice for San Gabriel now and in the future. So with that, thank you very much.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I thought all of you would be yielding your time to Mr. Golterman.
That was to ensure that he had adequate time to finish his presentation.
Okay. Well, true to public safety, there's an abundance of caution on your end. So thank you then. All right. So do I take it then the remainder of you are yielding your time back? Okay. Thank you for being here. Well, so I thought that was going to be a 33-minute presentation, but turned out to be maybe 3:30. All right. Is there any member of the other member of the public who would like to speak to the City Council on this issue? Sally, can somebody maybe assist Ms. Baldwin? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
very emotional about this, and I'm really sorry. I'm an old lady. I know that I want to have the best for our fire department. I love them all so much. In the past year, I have had 3 wonderful, exciting rides in the ambulance due to my spinal surgeries, which I've had 3 of them and within a year. and I've had some wonderful rides, and I've gotten to know some wonderful people. I treasure the idea that when somebody comes to pick me up and I'm so sick that I know them, and it gives me such a sense of comfort. It takes a lot of the fear away. I'm concerned, the only thing I'm concerned about with the county is the arrival time. They came so quickly. Harry called and they were here just within minutes. I also, things that have no economic impact, but things like Santa at Christmas and our fire department. I would miss that terribly. And a lot of the things that they do for the community. I love our fire department. I want what's best for my city. I just want you to know how lucky we are to have had the guys that we've had over the years and how wonderful our department is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Baldwin. It's the fifth ride now. No. Is there any other member of the public who would like to speak to the City Council on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment for this item. We can now begin council discussion. Does anybody like to start? Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you,
has
Mayor.
made eye contact and is brave enough to.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
First, Chief Wallace, appreciate the report. As the firefighter said, it's very in-depth, gave us a lot of information. I've read the report a couple times now because there's some things that are, I understand you're not going to get everything from the county, but it's hard. It's hard to put everything in one report. There's just a lot there, and I understand that. But you did a great job condensing it, because I read the county's summary as well as yours, or the county's report as well as your summary. And it captured the for the most part, what they're trying to convey to us. I did have some questions on page 2 of your report, under Fire Prevention Bureau, Bullet 3. It says, I want to know, as a firefighter specialist, are they dedicated only to San Gabriel? Because it says they're dedicated to San Gabriel.
Yes, the one firefighter specialist position
Okay.
will be dedicated to the
I just
city.
want to make sure, because sometimes they say dedicated, and they can be dedicated to 4 cities.
No, this one is actually will be
Okay,
here for the city.
It didn't say that in either report, so I just wanted to make sure. I want to confirm that. I know you don't have. There's not enough space to do it. What are the difference in duties between what the county calls a fire prevention captain and our equivalent position, which would be what, the division chief?
We really don't have a fire prevention captain. It is the responsibility of overseeing the prevention is done by a division chief at this time. The fire prevention captain will oversee the bureau for this area, so he does oversee multiple cities.
Okay.
He or she.
Yeah, I was just trying to compare apples to apples on the different items. And I noticed right now we pretty much, I would say, we're operating as ALS, right, not BLS.
We are operating almost exclusively as ALS.
Yeah,
correct?
so that was my understanding, because it looks like we're going to kind of, the transport goes to BLS if it's needed, but in essence, if we went to county, it would still be, we'd still have the paramedics,
Correct.
but we wouldn't be using the paramedics to transport unless needed.
If needed, the paramedic would accompany a patient into the hospital in the BLS ambulance, which at that point it becomes an ALS ambulance.
Okay.
If it's not needed in a BLS, the EMTs on the ambulance can assume care, then they will not transport.
But that's something we could mirror if we had to? Like
It is something we're actually looking at in the service model studies.
Okay, perfect, yeah. So page 5 of your report, and this is, I've come back to this, and we had one member of the public to comment on this. Your report says, and I'll quote it, with proposed development that adds population density and larger buildings, service enhancements, including staffing a second rescue ambulance and placing a ladder truck in service, have been identified as 2 primary needs. The San Gabriel Fire Department can accomplish this through entitlements from development and a commitment to support the expansion of the project. This has been my biggest concern with some of the developments coming up, and I've addressed it with staff, and one of the things I'm trying to figure out is we keep doing these planned developments on these larger projects, and we do these overlays, and I'm trying to figure out how the fire department is approving these when we know we don't have the capacity internally, and this report just kind of highlights that. We're going above and beyond what our zoning allows, and I believe we did our zoning for a reason. It wasn't haphazard. We had very good reasons to have height limits. We had very good reasons for density limits. I mean, these were reasons that are now kind of, the cracks are starting to show. We're approving these, or trying to approve these big developments. We can't even right now service what we have, yet here we are adding density, and we're adding height, and we're adding massing. And so I don't know how the fire department is approving these when they come through plan check. This should be something that should be highlighted on every plan and have mitigation, such as added fees to add a ladder or add a quint, something that would actually be proportional to the services that we're now having to increase in number of calls, difficulty of calls. So that's something that should be in these fees, but I'm not seeing it. And it's not a one-time thing. These are year over year. If we have a quint, you're talking about a whole other level of service that we would be, more training, more
Correct.
expenses. Where do we house it? That's not one development that can pay for that. It's a bunch of development, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time fee. So I'd really like to see the fire department get a study saying, like, what is the economic impact of all these developments, and how are we going to pay for this service? Going to county may help, may not help, but whether we do that or not, we need to address that. And I think this report helps highlight that, and I really appreciate the fact that you highlighted it in this report. So the next thing that I wanted to highlight is it said 26% of our multiple incidents attended by outside agencies. I'm assuming that means that our guys are already on calls either in San Gabriel or somewhere else.
Correct. Generally, they're already on calls in San Gabriel or engaged.
So what percentage of that 26 were we actually in another city where, had we not been in that other city in mutual aid or automatic aid, because I'm sure that would have reduced a little bit, because we had to have, can't always be 3 calls. I mean, some of those, we might have had 1 call in San Gabriel, 1 in Monterey Park, and they covered us, or however that worked, or Alhambra covered, or.
That data I don't have. I'll see if we can extrapolate that somehow.
Okay.
That may be complicated.
Yeah, because that makes, it would be
we'll
very
look into that.
complicated, but I just wanted, you don't have to have the actual number, but philosophically, I doubt that 100% of that 26% is because we had 3 calls. Sometimes we might be in a call assisting someone else as well.
It could be, just so you know, it's very common to have 2 or more actually running in the city at the same time. And our engine captains and our crews are very, very good about being astute and hearing it on the radio and trying to jump it when they are available. But I'll try to look in and see if I can extrapolate some of that information from you and see what percentage are actually run outside of the city.
Perfect. And then so I looked at Model A, looked at Model B. These pretty much either mirror or slightly diminish our current model. It was called the San Gabriel's model. I'm assuming because we're mirroring, the response time is going to be similar.
The response time would be similar. I'm basing it on the fact that we would have resources in stations in our city. They're not going to have to come from outside areas. At this point, I couldn't tell you what the response times from Alhambra stations are into certain positions in our city any more than I could tell you what a response is going to be from Temple City into our city.
Does that affect the mutual aid or the automatic aid at all if we went to county?
The existing automatic aid agreements would remain in place, so we still would get resources from the Verdugo area resources.
Okay,
Yes.
just double checking. I'd like to know that.
Yep.
And one thing that was brought up is the number. I think the firefighters brought this up. If we had a major event like an earthquake, because there's so many more stations in LA County, we would have all these extra firefighters. My understanding is the earthquake wouldn't only be in San Gabriel. So everywhere else that they're servicing, they have to cover those areas too. So I don't really think that's a straight line analogy. They have more resources, but they're also covering equivalent or bigger area. So I don't want to have a misconception that all of a sudden instead of 36 firefighters available, which, a third of them were already on duty, we're not going to be bringing in 140 extra firefighters. So I don't want to give the public a false perception that we have all these extra people, because we exponentially expand the amount of area we're covering. So it's probably a net sum zero game in that case.
Yeah, in that case, when that happens, and it's the same thing that happens with our current model in Verdugo, initially when the event happens, all the auto aid agreements are suspended until an assessment is done in the area, and resources that are then based on what's done in each city. If they have something excess, then they'll start moving into other cities. The county will do the same thing. With the county, though, given their just sheer size and scope, There will be some reflex time, but they can move in. Something happens here that hasn't happened in Lancaster, or something that hasn't happened down in the basin. You know, they will have the capability to move resources up into the area.
But I think my point though is I don't think that the going to county or not going to county has a major impact on that, because if nothing's happening somewhere else, they're gonna say, oh wait, no, we're not gonna send it to San Gabriel. They still would. It's still going to be a needs assessment.
Correct.
The fact that we are county instead of San Gabriel, I don't think is going to change the way the county operates. I think they're going to go to where the need is. I mean, they're going to cover themselves first, obviously, because they're covering unincorporated and the county areas, but and the cities that are serviced. But at the same time, if there's a need somewhere, it's going to be covered.
And it's
we're
very
going to be stretched thin, and we know it.
Sure, and it's very similar to what happens in the wildfires. A need is identified. It goes back to a region with the needs assessment, and they go find the available resources and send it to that area. So yes, you're correct in your assumption.
Okay, thank you. And also the cost to fix the fire stations. I think all the council knows how old our stations are. We've all been in them. We've seen it. But whether we go to county or not, that's going to be the same thing. The only difference is right now the council can have some input as to when and how they're fixed. If we go to county, do we have that input?
You still do. We're still responsible for the major repairs. If you said, I noticed in there it does say minor repairs up to $50,000 per station per year. So major structural renovations do fall back on us. Yes.
I know the cost is, but who decides when they happen?
I think that would be mutually agreed between the fire district and ourselves.
And if there's a dispute?
If there's a dispute, I'll have to look into it and get back to you exactly.
Because that's something that if we did go to county, that would need to be in the agreement, because inevitably the county's going to have a different opinion than the city. So that's just something I want to make sure we address. And then another resident, I think it was Sally, brought up the Santa. How would this affect community engagement? And as far as like, are we killing Santa or?
No, I believe me, we won't kill Santa.
I know.
Killing Santa would have far-reaching repercussions, far beyond going to county for services. Believe me.
Because I've been asked that question, like, what happens to Santa Claus?
Yep, I actually did ask that question to the assistant chiefs when we were in here in our initial meeting, and that is something we negotiate and we request. There is a community services officer in their headquarters station in Rosemead that when we want to do something like that, we will request that, and they will accommodate those requests. A year ago, we brought that up as well, and one night when I was talking to one of the battalion chiefs from the county, he said he had 8 different Santa rides going on in that one night.
Perfect.
So the district engines will accommodate that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
So then, I think the balance of my questions are going to be for Paula, because they're more financial. You may be comfortable answering them. I don't know if you want Paula to, or...
Sure, let's see what I can do for you.
All right, so page 6 of the report, it goes into the fiscal impact. And it's basically, we budget about $1.5 million a year for unfunded actuarial liability, and that's paid through the property tax.
Yes, to the retirement tax.
And that's gonna keep going regardless of what happens.
Yes.
Correct. But theoretically, over the amortization period, it's going to be reduced if we would go to the county. Because eventually that unaccrued liability would go away.
Well, eventually it will. I mean, that's what we pay that money for. I mean,
But right now we're adding to it every year because we're paying for the pension.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. It's hopefully we can chip away at it. But if we went to the county, that'd keep going down because we wouldn't keep accruing that, correct?
Eventually it would go down, yes.
Down to 0 once it's paid off.
Right, but we have a $53 million
But we're not adding,
right now.
If we went to county, we're not adding to it.
Correct.
Because county has $13.5 billion right now. I can tell you because I know that I have their CAFR.
Okay, yes. And the $53 million is for police and fire. CalPERS was not able to break out police and fire for me.
I understand.
So the police side would still keep growing, but what would be attributable to the fire, you're correct, would not grow anymore after they left.
So then my question for LA County, if we went to county, assuming that cost is going down, how do they account for the fee cities on their actuarially accrued liability? Does that cost pass to us? Our percentage of it, or how does that work? In this report, it didn't say. So is that a cost of doing business? Is it not a cost of doing business?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So theoretically, if we join the county, we're going to be adding to their actuarially accrued liability. Because we're not going to be paying it all through this fee, correct?
We're paying the city's accrued unfunded liability up to the point that they leave here. When they go to La Sierra, they'd be starting fresh. They wouldn't have an accrued liability.
So is that included in the fee is my question.
Their La Sierra costs going forward would be included in their fee.
So right now we have the option of amortizing that and paying it or smoothing it over 20 to 30 years. That goes away if we go to the county because we're paying as you go. So the whole entire cost is wrapped into that fee is my point. There are no deferred fees. There are no unaccrued fees.
The county's fees?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, county.
Yes, that is a fee that they do every year. There are no accrued fees in there as far as I know. I don't see how there could be. So it is just a fee that we pay every year.
So I know we have a fee cap. That fee cap includes the actuarial liability?
That includes their probably their normal cost at this point.
Just the normal cost?
Like I said, they don't have an accrued liability right now for these people.
I mean, okay, so the county is not making all of its accrued liability payments currently. I'm
Okay,
assuming
so are
part
we
of our
paying a piece of theirs?
Day one going forward, I'm assuming we're not paying any of theirs right now, but we would theoretically have that cost.
They don't give us a breakdown of their actual costs, and they certainly don't give us a breakdown of the overhead, which is at 30%, which it may be a piece in there, and we've never been able to get a breakdown of that.
That's exactly what I'm getting to. I want to get the numbers broken down within accounting of, so what exactly are we paying in this fee? What can go up? What do we have that's nailed down that we know we're paying? Because right now they couldn't, our UAL would be zero with the county.
Right.
Day one it would be zero, but theoretically day two we would have some.
Correct.
Is that included in the fee or not included? Because that's something we should get an accounting for.
We
Because
can
if we're
certainly
going to
ask.
compare apples to apples, we need to know
Yes.
that. Okay. Are there any contractual guarantees of what costs can and can't be passed to us? I mean, in this fee. So, for example, if the county runs into an issue and they try and say it's because of all of our fee for service, are there any fees that you've ever seen that have been passed on to cities? Like, for example, passed to a fee city, but not for fee city, like the district cities?
In my experience, the only fees I've ever seen is your basic fee and the overhead, not any extra costs, except for the rollover from year to year.
Okay, got it. So on page 7 to 8, when you read it, it's kind of a long, kind of financial morass. I don't know how you want to say that. But it's clear that the county contract, as a percentage, outpaces the increase in the county costs appear like they're going to outpace what we anticipate our cost to increase on a percentage basis. Is that accurate or not? It's just hard to, when reading that, it seems like that's what you're getting at.
It is, but what we looked at were the salary costs, the accrued liability, and the normal costs going through. What the PERS gave us estimates for the next 7 years, so we've built those in. We did not build in equipment replacement or facility replacement and any of those type things. It would, to get into that, we would need to sit down and do a better 5-year, more extensive 5 or 10-year forecast to include all those type things.
But in both scenarios, those are outside of the fee. The
fee, their fee does include $50,000 maintenance.
No, I'm talking about replacement fees or actually construction.
Right.
So
But even maintenance, ours only includes the $19,000. Theirs includes the $50,000 per station. So
perhaps we should put that into ours just so it's apples to apples.
apples to apples. That's what I'm thinking. You know, we did this on base of what we had, but to do in the time we had to do it, to do that full extensive type thing, and I'd certainly be willing to start it, would require to go through line item by item and look at every single thing. Getting everything that's included in that overhead charge from the county is challenging.
I don't think that's what I'm getting at. I just think because the county is saying we'll budget, or that includes $100,000, we might want to add that $100,000 to our cost, and it's going to bring the costs closer together. Because in essence, they're saying we're going to go up to this amount, we can budget up to that amount, and then once again, we're doing apples to apples, because right now we're kind of saying San Gabriel's cost is $15,000 and the county's cost is $100, so we've thrown the cost $85,000 delta. That'll
Except
bring closer into alignment.
they're saying they will budget up to $50,000. That doesn't mean they're going to spend the $50,000.
But that's 50 per station.
50 per station, yes. But they're just saying that they'll provide up to 50 per station. There's not a guarantee that they're going to spend the 50.
But I'm just saying, comparing costs, we budget
I understand,
it the same
yes.
way. Okay.
Yeah.
And then along those lines, the fee cap.
Yes.
It kind of gives you a false sense of security that all it's capping is how much we have to pay that year. It's not
Correct.
paying. It's not capping how much we owe.
Correct.
Okay, so and I understand that they're saying that it's average 3.8%, but then why are we agreeing to 5.5? And is that at the end of the 10 years, is there going to be like, here's what you owe, the 10 years is over, and now there's no more fee cap, or is that something that just keeps rolling?
It just keeps rolling.
So there's no end to the fee cap.
They say they average 3.8, but in my column here where I have the B, the hypothetical rate increase, I put others in there just to demonstrate how the cap works.
Yeah.
And how that rollover works. But they could have 2 years at 5.5, and then they could jump up, something happens, and the fee goes up to maybe 7% 1 year, or even 8, and then back down to 3 and all that. So they give you an accounting every year of how much it actually costs to run the operations with the overhead, and then how much your cap was, how much your rollover is. So you get a good accounting of that every year. But yes, the fee is not capped. Only the amount that you pay each year is capped, and that even increases every year.
Yes. So page 9, one of the items that came up in the summary as well as the county's report is the financial position of the city.
Yes.
And they said that the city of San Gabriel would have to have the means of ensuring payment.
Correct.
It sounded a little ominous, but
Yes.
have they indicated to you what we would have to pledge? I mean, is it a tax revenue stream or?
No, I called and asked, and they said, the person I spoke with, which is in the finance section there, said that they didn't know it would have to be worked out between the city and the auditor controller.
Okay. So that's some information it's probably good to get back when this comes back to us, or if it comes back to us.
I'd like to know what that is.
And I was a little confused as to the Prop 13 and the tax. So you indicated that the previous cities in the district, the ones that are not fees, they get 17% of that 1% property tax.
That's what
that
they
goes to the
indicate.
county.
Right. Out of the 1% levy, 17% of that goes to the county for those cities that have basically free fire service.
Well, they're still paying because they're not receiving the revenues. It's a different way of paying.
But they're still getting property tax. The cities still get a piece of the property tax. They're not getting zero. And if you take a look at ours, we only get 10% of property tax. So our 10% wouldn't even pay for their 17%. I did ask that. I went and asked, because it came up before at a prior city, that the LA County Fire District was not subject to ERAF, where they diverted some of the city's property taxes. So I called our property tax consultant and said, okay, what was our pre-ERAF tax rate? Thinking that we could get some of that back if we pledged our property tax and the whole kind of, we've tried to figure out everything we could to get to this. Turns out our pre-ERAF tax rate was only 12%. So even before ERAF, we couldn't have paid the fire service contract with our property tax that we get. But if you look at all those cities that are not fee for service but are in the county district, they still get property tax.
So I'm trying to me that seems like all of the cities that didn't go county, 1978 or
1978
prior?
before, yeah.
They're probably subsidizing all the cities in the counties, in the district. I mean, there's no other way to put that.
I've always thought that, but I've always been told no, so.
But told by whom?
The fire district.
Has that ever been litigated?
No. Oh, I don't know. I'm not.
I don't know, because I've never
Not
heard
that I
any
know of.
litigation over that. Because to me, it seems like we're subsidizing all these other cities, and we're not getting the benefit of that. 'Cause I just didn't know if that had ever come up.
I don't know if it has with them. I've not been experienced that.
Okay. Because that just, to me, it seemed, like you said, they're getting quote-unquote free service, yet they're still receiving more tax revenue than we are.
I don't know the percentage that they're receiving, but I do know they get some. And even if we gave up all of ours,
We'd
it
still be
wouldn't cover
net,
their costs.
We'd still be net negative.
Yes.
By probably a significant amount.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Might as well go this way.
Sure, Vice Mayor Menchaca.
Okay. I'll start with the chief and then end with Paula. So Chief, I wanted to find out, can you just give me some assurances here? Are we meeting the basic needs of fire services that are being provided? Because I know there is an agency, whether it's Verdugo or, I'm not sure what the name of the agency is, but every fire department is being looked at. There's always some compliance issues. You're being reviewed. And so I just need assurances, are we meeting the basic needs of service?
We are meeting the basic needs of service, but to do that, we are relying heavily on the mutual aid and automatic aid from our partners in the area. And I would venture to guess that a lot of the cities our size are doing the very same thing. We are audited yearly by the Los Angeles County EMS agency in our paramedic program. We've just completed that audit, and that came back as we're doing very well in that. As well, we transmit quarterly data on our responses and our incidents to the California State Fire Marshal's Office, which is they compile statistics and look at all the operations, and we have never in my history here had anything come back adversarial from them.
So if there was something...
If there was something, we would know about it. If there was something as well, I think would be identified within the Verdugo system, sort of on a peer level as well, and that has not been identified at this time, except our heavy use of the auto aid system.
And if there was some type of violation, I can't think of the proper word, but let's just say a violation, the city council would be made aware of it also.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So would it go directly to you? Would it go to the city manager? How does that work?
I believe that would have come back to me if we had that. Again, I haven't had that experience.
Okay.
But it would come here, and at that point, it would go to the city manager and right back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Regarding this decision, it's a major decision because if we move forward, we can never go back. Some people have a different opinion, but kind of reading some of the situations that have happened in the past in other communities, if they wanted to change their minds, it becomes almost impossible. So we really need to be very thoughtful, and I'm really concerned that we haven't done any type of stakeholder outreach, community meetings, businesses. I'm not sure how many people even know we're having this conversation or that we had this study. And I just wanted to find out, was that something that was ever proposed or has there been any kind of discussion about taking this out?
Yes, actually quite a bit of discussion. We sort of held off on that once we wanted to see the direction that you were going to give us. We decided that we would rather not get the community in an uproar, and this is a very important, very, very emotional issue, as you've said. And there's no sense in getting people emotionally charged and getting this divisive issue out there if it's not going to move forward. Our plan is to move forward with community outreach, hold town hall meetings.
And are you planning to move forward whether we decide to move the county or we decide to stay, or?
If you would decide to stay, I would go to a mode where I would do some presentations of the state of the fire department with the community, let them know where we are and let them know where we need to be and what kind of service models we would look to in the future to sustain our operations and provide the best service we can provide.
Well, that's what I was leading to, that, we've had meetings after the fact. I think it wouldn't be as welcomed, but I think kind of long overdue that we've reached this point where there are some gaps, and we should have done a better job. And I know that's the past, but even going forward, we need to inform our community of what the needs are. And if we do have gaps, then we need to figure out, how do we fill those gaps? There are possibilities, from parcel taxes to maybe some other type of ballot measure, but I really think we should have been informing our community instead of just suddenly here we are with the study. And it's not to blame anyone in particular, but clearly this has been escalating over the years or decades maybe. And as Councilmember Harrington mentioned, I mean, we keep having this development, and we have to move forward with development because we do have a lot of empty lots that create blight, and there are tremendous needs from affordable housing to retail businesses. So we can't just stop that. But I wish we would have done a little bit more. I guess we need to decide how we want to move forward, but I do want to bring stakeholders into the fold.
Sure.
So I was just trying to understand.
The
a little
community
bit.
engagement piece, the community meetings, the town halls are definitely on our radar and in our wheelhouse. Our first piece of real community engagement in this last year was redeveloping the CERT and making the contact in the community. From that, once we kind of saw where we were going to go with this, whether it was information about the state of the fire department and what we need to move forward and maintain service, or whether we're going to go to the county and provide information on that's one of our next big moves.
Thank you. And then let me see if I understand this correctly. So if we decide to, okay, let's say we decide to move forward, the whole shift of personnel would move except for our engineers. So LA County would bring in their staff, and everybody that we're familiar with would have to be moved somewhere else.
Correct.
Is that
When the annexation would happen, or when the day comes where they say flip the switch, all of the fire department employees, with the exception of the engineers, would be reassigned to other stations. The engineers do stay in the city to help the incoming crews with familiarization, to learn target hazards, to learn the routes, to learn the hydrant systems and the water systems. And they stay for a period of 6 months to a year and then are generally reassigned. After a year, all the employees are eligible to bid to whatever stations they want. So if people wanted to come back here and there were vacancies, they would be available to do that. I should say that when this first came up on the radar and all the county guys started hearing about it, many of them in the Battalion 10 and the surrounding areas, which are just to the east of us, wanted to know when it was going to happen, what our stations were like, because there's actually quite a lineup of people that do want to come and work here. So after a period of transition, you would start seeing familiar faces, although not be at the ones you're used to. And
so how often, I mean, how long is their tenure usually? Do they get to stay as long as they want, or are they constantly moving? Is there like a limit, you can only stay 2 years and you need to move on to the next city?
No,
or?
Once you're into a position, which is all bid by seniority, once you're into a position, you stay as long as you'd like to hold that position. It's a little bit different in promotions, where we promote and we might move someone between two stations depending where a vacancy is. When they promote, it could be out of the city or out of an area. But generally, once somebody has a position, they hold it, it's theirs for as long as they like it.
Okay, so what if we decide to stay? Then there is the possibility that some of the current firefighters would want to leave, maybe go to other cities, or maybe move to LA County on their own. So we would also probably see some familiar faces, even if we stay, if we decide not to go through the annexation.
You would see some familiar faces. I think there's a very, very realistic chance that if it stays at San Gabriel, that we will lose some people. As we said earlier in the report, the lateral hiring and actually the needs of the fire departments all over the region is unprecedented right now. And people are getting snapped up left and right. So I do believe you'd see still some faces that are going to be here. Some people will stay, and others will look at other opportunities and go.
Okay, so it sounds like either way there will be some new faces.
That's correct. And there's going to be new faces. We have 6 vacancies right now, and my goal is to get those filled, and you'll see new faces with them as well.
Okay, so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then let me ask Paula. I had a couple questions for you also. So on our retirement tax, we're one of the few cities that have that luxury, I guess, to have that type of tax. But there are restrictions, correct? It could only be used for CalPERS. It can't be used for Lucera.
Correct. The language in the ballot said that it was for California state retirement system.
So then if we do move, then that one fee that I believe it would include the Lucera piece that we would be responsible for, we couldn't use any of that retirement tax.
No, but we could still use it for the unfunded liability that stays with the city.
And you said it was $53 million, so it'll take a while for us to, okay. And then the conversion costs, the 2.4, I mean, that was definitely a concern, even over a 3-year period. That's substantial.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm not sure what kind of payment plan. I mean, we'd have to give them our, I don't know, this building or something to pay for it. But that is a great concern of mine because it's a big number, and I think I also believe there's some hidden costs that still haven't been flushed out, and so I think we need to look at this much more carefully. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you go to, let's see if I can get these pages right. Let's see, on the attachment B, they have it was option A, option B, and both of them, if you go back to the report, this one is for 2019-2020 annual fee, and then earlier in the report it was 2018-2019. So we started with 6.8, then suddenly with this new attachment B, it's only been a year, suddenly it jumps up to 7.5, so it's about 11% increase. And then the same thing with option B. In the previous report shows 2018-2019 at 6.7, and now for 2019-2020 it's 7.4. So again, it's another 11% increase in 1 year. So I am very concerned that we lose all control. I mean, they pretty much give us a number, and there's no negotiation. You know, it doesn't matter what our financial situation is. We can't put a pause. They want their number. I mean, they want their fee at whatever cost.
Correct.
I mean, so is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Okay.
We get a bill each month, then we pay the bill.
Yeah. So if you look at page 8, you know, you go through, you have that chart A, B, C, D, year 1 through year 10. I mean, those are substantial increases. And I know, I mean, there will be a time where, you know, we may be hitting another 2007, 2008, where we have a recession. And, you know, at that time, we were able to kind of work through with the staff. But if we move, it doesn't matter. We get the bill, and whatever it takes, just pay it.
Correct. But again, those are hypothetical increases. We don't know what they're going to be. So.
Well, but they could also be higher,
Yes.
too. I mean, it just seems like there's really no cap.
Correct.
That's the realistic.
Just the cap is per year.
Okay. And I did like what I saw with in the presentation, that if we decide to stay, you know, what kind of options we have for service enhancements. I think this is the first time I've really heard about it. Maybe it's been discussed in the past, but you know, that's something I would like to see maybe a little more in detail. You know, what would those service enhancements look like, and what would be the cost? Because I think, you know, there is tremendous value of having our own fire department, but I can see that there's value also in moving because of the resources. It's just like, you know, I've worked with small companies and I've worked for big companies. I've worked for a KPMG, and I worked for my own company, which is very small. You know, the resources is always a big issue. You know, there's so much more with a large company, but there is a certain level of freedom when you're with a smaller company, and it's more family oriented. You're not just a number or a paycheck. And so, you know, I would like to see what kind of service enhancements would make the difference, because I think, again, whether we're in LA or we stay here, there's always going to be mutual aid. We're always helping each other. We're not going to just, you know, they're not just going to leave us there. So, you know, I would like to have some more detail on the service enhancements. And then, yeah, I too was very curious, and maybe we can have someone that has a little bit more influence, I guess, than you, Paula. What does it mean by means of ensuring payment? What are we going to need to sign that's going to impact if we go to LA County? I mean, are we, you know, tying our, you know, handcuffing ourselves, our community for the next infinite number of years? I mean, what is it going to take? What do they want? Because I'm surprised they don't at least be a little more specific. I mean, means of ensuring payment. It just doesn't, and I know you quoted them. I mean, that was
yes,
an
I did.
exact quote. But I would like to know, what does that mean? And let's see. I think that, yeah, that's all for now. But thank you for the presentations on both of you. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Costanzo.
Thank you, Mayor Pooh. Again, this has been a long time waiting for this report to come about. It is a very emotional decision that we will have to make, if not tonight, I'm sure some night in the future. As Sally Baldwin had said, you know, the majority of my time on council, I've always tried to preserve and protect, and was so proud of the fact that we have our own department. Many cities don't, but we build a relationship and an attachment to all you guys, and I don't know if you realize that, but Sally and I have talked many times about making sure we have our makeup on. God forbid there's an emergency and you have to rescue us, because we want to look good for you guys. So, but in saying that, this is a very serious matter. And when it came about that the department wanted us to look at this feasibility study and to look at the possibility of going to county, I'm putting my emotions aside and putting my business hat on and just trying to look at everything as the best way I can. Chief Wallace, you had mentioned that you were going to be preparing a 5-year strategic plan.
Yes.
Early 2020, whenever that might be.
Yes, we hope to have a framework of what we could do to move forward as our own department with several different service models and costs available to you.
And that will tell us what is going to be needed to keep us sustainable, to protect and serve this community?
Yes.
As our own department?
Yes.
Okay. Also, Paula, this is kind of a question for you. I know you did a very detailed financial analysis to the best of your abilities for the information that you had. In that financial analysis, were there accountability for savings like on workers' comp and things of that sort that you took into consideration? So again, we're comparing this apples to apples.
We did not calculate any costs going forward for workers' comp, so we assume that would all stop day one. We know that won't happen because we know that we'll be on the hook for some of those things, but we did not build any costs in there. So we didn't inflate anything by potential future costs.
Okay, but liability insurance or retirement, was that taken into consideration? The possible savings?
Well, the retirement, yes, we backed that
Okay.
out. The liability, again, we assumed it stopped day one, moving out. That's less likely to go forward than workers' comp. Workers' comp is because it's people-based and things can happen in the future. With liability, that would transfer to the county when we went to a county contract.
Okay. And as many have mentioned, with the development within our community, it concerns all of us, having 6-story buildings and not having the immediate proper equipment to access those if, God forbid, there should be a fire. It was stated in the report that we do need an additional fire truck and I think an additional ambulance.
Yes.
So those costs, were those included in the city side of things, that should be an element that we should include as costs going forward?
No, it was not.
Okay.
That would be part of the component that we'd bring back with the 220 plan.
Okay,
that
with
it's gonna bring
the
forward.
5-year plan.
Right.
Okay.
And let me clarify my comment about the insurance or the liability. We can be sued for anything, so.
That's true, at any time.
Yeah, I can't say that all of our costs would go away, but they're not built into my analysis here.
Okay. There was also in the county report on page 24 a site assessment, and it said the city would be required to mitigate and abate all environmental hazards and provide evidence to the fire district that all recommended measures have been completed and that all applicable laws and requirements have been complied with. Are there things that we're concerned about? I know we have aging buildings. I know there's many upgrades that we need to do, but is there a current concern with our men and women of the fire department being in these buildings?
That came about, we were just beginning the process of the mixed gender dormitory construction and renovations. And when they came and did the survey that was going on, and we were just in the midst of starting asbestos abatement for that. So they were concerned at that point because we did not have any certificates to show that that had been done. Captain Irwin, who sort of functioned as our general contractor on this, went back and forth on this, and that abatement has been completed.
Okay. And are there any other concerns that we have to immediately be aware of?
Outside of potential seismic issues, which are going to be ongoing, I don't know of any environmental issues within
And the seismic
stations.
will be part of your 5-year?
We'll look at it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're going to get everything so we can compare, again, apples to apples, because it's important to me that if we can sustain the fire department and give the men and women the pay raises that they need to be, competitive in the industry, then we need to do that and fill the positions and things of that sort. So I just want to make sure that we are putting all that into your 5-year strategic plan so we can look at it.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of information, and that's one reason it didn't come into here, because
Okay.
we felt it prudent to get this out and get this done, and that's still going to be lots more research and a lot of information to compile and produce.
I understand that, and I think it's important to get that before we would make
Yes.
any decision to move forward. But I'm not for closing any of the study, the feasibility at this point in time. I think we still have to bring on additional information to make a valid decision. So those are my comments for tonight. Thank you. Thanks again for all this work, both you and Paula.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Costanzo, I just want to clarify one thing that Paula said. When she says that the workers' comp and liability, those numbers are not in her analysis, what she's saying, and I don't want to explain for her, she's excellent at explaining on her own, but what she's saying is if those were added in, those would be added in on the county cost side. So that would make the county cost side more expensive because those would be costs going forward. So she's actually being more conservative towards the county side by not including those in. So any more down into the fine details we get on that side will make that side of the proposal look less advantageous towards going that way. So just to make that clear, it's not that those numbers are hanging out. That would actually make us look less expensive if we went somewhere else.
Councilmember Leal.
Thank you, Mayor. So, since 2000, San Gabriel joined the Verdugo Fire Communications, but in this staff's report, it says our use of automatic aid has evolved to a point that we rely heavily on outside agencies to meet the basic daily responses. So it's not sustainable. Can you explain why we're not sustainable with the
We are
Verdugo?
generally taking more out of the system than we're giving back. While our resources do run into other cities when they're available, we are getting more resources coming into our city overall than we are able to provide. A basic structure fire, a basic house fire, the standard of response is 3 pumping engines, 2 ladder trucks, a rescue ambulance, and 2 battalion chiefs. We can't even provide that at this point. Medical responses, they generally want to see 5 personnel on scene for something like a cardiac arrest. And what's important is you send the number of people out because no one's ever sure when a call comes what it's actually going to be. So for us to get 5 people on scene, that basically takes out most of the department. We'll still have 1 3-person engine left if they're not on something else. So yes, we do rely heavily on the outside agencies to fulfill our needs.
Right, and on top of that, we still have that 6 vacants that we cannot fill. And as a matter of fact, I think we're competing with other agencies, especially LA County, and they probably looking to hire more firefighters because of all these wildfires. So is that the
LA
true-
County is looking to hire more firefighters, not necessarily just because of the wildfires, which is something they're looking at as well. But they're looking at it just because they haven't been able to keep up with the attrition out of their agency. The number of people don't leave generally LA County to go to another agency, but then the number of retirements, they aren't able to keep up with in the hiring.
Okay. And of course, the infrastructure, they're old and frail. And so one of them is 60 years old, 70 years old. So you looking into the seismic retrofit and also rewiring for all the buildings. Do you have an idea? Because you're talking about the 5 years strategic plan, and I would get an estimate how much it costs to to fix them, and so we can last another 5 years. So
Yeah.
do you have a plan to get estimates?
That is under development, and part of the facility renovation and what we actually need to do will become part of that. We have had lots of deferred maintenance over the years. A lot of times due to budgetary restrictions. And I got to give the firefighters a lot of credit, because most of the remodels that have happened and most of the fixes that have happened, they've either done. I know when we did both stations, kitchens and training rooms and day rooms, that was all done by the firefighters. When we remodeled the equipment barn behind Station 51, that was done by the firefighters. So there is a lot still to do. That is something we are working on identifying. Identifying which systems are really, really urgently needed to upgrade in each station. I got to say the county survey has helped that, because they had their building and maintenance people come in, they had their engineers come in, and gave us a pretty good idea of where the facilities stand. So yes.
Okay, so another, I guess the main concern from the community, especially for seniors, citizens, they concern about, the response time, that's gonna take, longer time for county firefighters to show up their front doors. But I look at it, there are three, well, actually more, but three near San Gabriel. One is on San Gabriel Boulevard, just south of Garvey. Another one is in Temple City on Valley, near Kaufman, that's in Temple City. Another one, on Rosemead Boulevard, and Valley and Rosemead. So it's within 2 miles, the way I look at them, and plus our 2 existing fire station. So why would not fighters from county, they can have shorter response time? I mean, with all these resources.
They're not shorter from within our city, and I have to base our response times in our city on the stations in the city. And we do very, very well with that. I anticipate that with the exact same resources in those stations, they would maintain that. We do have automatic aid all the time from San Marino, from Alhambra, and from Monterey Park, and I don't have numbers to quantify how long it takes them to get from a certain station to a point in our city. You're absolutely correct in that I believe there's 6 stations within 3 miles on the county side, and I don't have numbers coming in. I don't think a study's probably ever been done from what it's going to take from one of their stations into a certain point in our city. That being said, the city will rely on automatic aid, whether it's the county coming to help the county, or it's Alhambra, Monterey Park, or San Marino coming to help us. Whether it's coming from the west and the north, or the east and the south, there will still only be the 2 fire stations in the city. But both stations are placed very well and have excellent response times.
Okay. Well, we're in the process of bringing in new developments, because we need revenue in the city. As a matter of fact, our unrestricted general fund is negative, and the state controller, actually not auditor, they put San Gabriel as the 8th top most risky city in the state of California. I just couldn't believe this. And we don't want to bring in more business. That's not a right policy. But my question is, for now, okay, because we already have Sheraton Hotel, and we have the new hotel, Hyatt Hotel, and they probably going to be 6-story high. Do we have anything to put out fires just in case if there's such a tragic incident? And
sure, we will respond and begin an initial attack with the resources in the city. Our automatic aid partners will come in. We do train they're not really high-rise, these are sort of low-rise and mid-rise buildings, but that is training that's done. Whether there's 2 stations in the city and 4 or 6 outside the city, again, the same thing coming in from our west side, we will have the capability to take care of those. Our guys will always go in there and get it done. When we open up the resource pool and make more available to us, we'll get it done quickly, we'll get it done better and maybe more effectively. But rest assured, with our guys now, they will get it done. But we are looking to the future because it does tax our resources. It tax our ability to do that.
So another lady that she spoke about, she's stuck in the elevator, right? And it's going to happen more often because all these fire seasons, and it's called the Public Safety Power Shutoff, PSPS. And it's going to happen, at different area. But just in case, if the power is off and people got stuck in the elevators, can we help them?
We can help them, and that does happen. I'll say if we have a widespread power outage, we're going to be very busy, and people are going to be in elevators for quite some time. I would assume if there's a power safety cutoff in this area, something major has gone on, and it's not going to just affect San Gabriel, but Temple City and Rosemead and all the cities around here. So the resources will be stretched thin. We will get to people, and in an instance like that, which is a fairly sentinel event, that is going to take some time to mitigate. But I would expect the wide area to experience the same thing.
Thank you very much. And I have a question for Paula. So, I think going to the county is something we improve our service for our community. There's no doubt about that. It's just, can we afford? And one thing is, they look at our negative unrestricted general fund, so they asking for some kind of meaningful payment. And as I understand, the county hasn't told us yet, how we can afford to pay. Are we going to tie to property tax revenue or tie to our properties as collateral? We don't know, right? At this point, we don't know.
Correct, we do not know.
Okay. Another thing that you talk about, if we join, we will be the fee-to-service city, right? And in 1978, there are already 40 cities joining county fire, and they just pay minimal property tax. But as I understand, maybe a couple of months ago, the county fire chief, Chief Osby, and he announced it, well, the county fire department needs $1.4 billion for whatever, the equipment and to upgrade all this. And there's a talk, maybe go to the major ballot to increase the property tax, right?
Yes.
So as you understand, if we join, are we going to be affected? Because we're going to pay, the fee for service through our general fund, but then on top of that, we have to pay property tax too. So it's like a double charge for our service.
The property tax ballot initiative that would be going forward would only be for those cities that are not fee-for-service cities. I think the fee-for-service cities can opt to join and put it on their own ballot, but without the council approving that to go forward, it's only the non-fee-for-city services areas that get assessed that property tax. Just as like the levy that they put in place in 1997, it only applies to those that are serviced by the district as non-fee-for-service cities.
I see. And another thing is we're looking at maybe our finance situation would be improved if we pass this sales tax measure, right, in March.
Yes.
And how much money will that bring in? Do you remember?
We estimated about $3 million. But again, we still have the deficit fund balance that has to be covered, and there's always growing other expenses. So it's not free and unencumbered at this time.
Okay. So my question is, if we pass the sales tax measure, do you think city of San Gabriel can afford to pay this annexation to the county fire, like $8 million a year?
I don't think I can answer that at this time. It would take a lot more analysis from that. And again, we'd have to take a look at what our fund balance is like and the needs of the whole city, not just the one department.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Most of my questions have been asked and answered already, except for a couple. So it's my understanding that if, going back to our current service model, we run mostly on ALS, advanced life support type of system with rescue ambulances that can provide transport if necessary, transport to San Gabriel Valley Medical Center here or any other area hospital. And if you require that service, you are billed for that service. Is
That's
that correct? So my question then too, under option A and option B of the county, we're moving to squads. We would be moving to squads that do not have transport services. And if somebody required transport, they a private ambulance company would need to be called to provide that transport.
A private ambulance company, there's a few
Or a
ways
couple models.
that works. Yeah, generally, and probably the most efficient way to do it is that there's private ambulance companies that contract with the county. They're dispatched as well at the time of the initial fire dispatch. They are EMT equipped, so that if it is not a call that requires the paramedic level of care, that ambulance does arrive on scene. The resources on scene can pass that patient off to the EMTs and have them transport and then go available. If that does require the advanced level of care of the paramedics hop on to the rig and follow up to the hospital.
So what is somebody billed for? Because it does seem to be almost kind of duplicative in a sense. You're sending a squad out from the local fire station and a ambulance, for let's say cardiac or Mrs. Baldwin's calls. And there's several community members I know who recently have to use this, and it is a life and death, life or death, response situation.
I guess I'm not.
The question is, what do you have to pay for then if you're in county and you're getting a squad being sent from the fire department or from the fire district, and also an ambulance from some private company or whatever the county uses?
You're paying the same fee. The LA County Department of Health establishes every year the fees for transport. We follow that schedule. The county fire department follows that schedule as well. Right now, for an advanced life support transport, I believe it's in the neighborhood of $2,300 or $2,500.
Wow. So you're saying we follow that fee schedule as well? It would be the same fee regardless of whether we are our own department or whether we're with the county?
Yeah, the fee charged for ambulance transport in the county of Los Angeles to the patient is going to be the same whether it's us or the county fire department.
Okay, interesting. The second question that I have does relate to the page 5 and the development impact fees, because to me I read this paragraph and the point of it is that when developments are approved, we also charge these development impact fees in order to be able to provide for upgrades, whatever it might be that's needed to increase the level of service to for these developments. So my question is, are the development impact fees keeping pace and allowing us to keep pace with those additional developments, and how are those fees calculated? So this is why I think, I don't know if it might require Armene's expertise as well, but Chief, have you looked at our current schedule of development impact fees for fire service?
Our development impact fees are generally, I believe, a little bit lower than surrounding areas, and I would have to have Paul to verify that. They are starting to keep pace. We haven't seen some of the size developments where I think some of this stuff has actually been pursued and brought in. I know the new Symphony development is probably the first one I started actually looking at in my position.
I'm sorry, which development?
The potential Symphony development, the memory care home.
Oh, Symphony.
Yeah, Symphony.
Okay.
And that's the first one as I came up through the ranks that I was really aware of and saw.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, and that development is a assisted care living
Right, and
facility,
that's-
which might actually have higher, much or in potentially much higher need for fire service, particularly ambulance or EMT or firefighter paramedic service than sort of standard development.
Sure.
Can and was that included into
That one
the,
actually specifically, because the kind of facility, the fees were based around additional equipment and resources that we're going to need for it. We have cardiac monitors slated to be purchased from them. Yeah, so it is looked at, the kind of development and what it's going to require and the impact it is going to have on the service.
Okay, because, all right, and I don't know if Armine, you want to chip in, because I'm getting to, do we need to reevaluate what the development impact fees are, because the point of this is that, if we need more apparatuses, like, a ladder truck, for instance, or another rescue ambulance, that part of that cost can be paid for through these development impact fees. But to date, I have yet to hear or see, us using those fees for those types of purposes.
Good evening, Mayor Pooh and members of the City Council. As far as I am aware, we've recently had planned development agreements that we've brought to City Council. Most recently, as the Chief mentioned, we had the Symphony. We also had 220 South San Gabriel, which will most likely be back in the near future. We anticipate having some other projects probably in the next year where the developer has asked to use the planned development process because they may be going at a higher density than what the code currently allows. In those instances, we actually add additional conditions and additional estimates of what the fees would be because it's going above and beyond what our regular fees would be. For example, with the two projects that so far have come in front of council, we've actually spent quite a bit of time in working out those details with the fire department and looking at what the actual impact is going to be. Now, are our current fees in line where they should be? I think in the near future we should probably look at them holistically and see if the fees are in fact in line with what we generally see. I think to this date, we haven't had any reason to question them. With the larger projects, we have added additional conditions that have required for the developer to pay additional fees because there is a greater impact. For example, Symphony is a great example. Given the individuals who would reside at the facility and the need for service and the cost for service, those estimates were added in and the developer was required to pay a larger amount on top of their regular fees because there would be an impact.
But specifically for fire?
Specifically for fire,
Okay,
we included
good.
additional line items in there. Some of you may recall we had a chart that identified all the additional fees that they were required to pay. And specifically for fire, we required them to pay additional fees. Same with 220 South San Gabriel. And I know one particular project I'm thinking of, which would be at the nursery site, where I anticipate there will be a planned development overlay zone and a development agreement. I anticipate there would be an estimate for additional fees the developer would be on the hook to pay because they're going above and beyond what we currently require.
But just to be clear for us and members of the public, regardless of whether it's done through a planned development overlay or not, there will be development impact fees for most, actually any project that requires analysis, correct? Even
Yes.
Rebuilding of a single-family home or
That's part of all the fees that
adding on to, like adding a second story to a second, there's a pro rata share of those costs, and that's why they're called development impact fees. So it's not,
Yes, sir.
It's not about, I think the PDO world actually allows us to be able to require more than what the code currently specifies as far as those fees should be, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add that I have no concern over our ability to raise enough fees through planned development or through our development impact fees to pay the cost of the equipment. We could, in fact, identify and assign a share of a high-rise building that is required to pay a fee for a quint, for example, or a ladder truck.
Mhm.
We could even require those impact fees to pay a share cost of raising the roof of one of the facilities. The issue that I have, what I haven't seen successfully mitigated through development, are the ongoing costs. So if we add a ladder truck and we have to add 6 or 9 or however many firefighters to that, the ongoing costs are the more difficult costs to cover.
Well, this is exactly what I'm trying to say too. I mean, that all of the staffing costs should be increased staffing that might be required should be included in these development impact fees as well. And it's not just for fire, of course. We have the same thing for police. And there's there are other development impact fees that go for different purposes. But what I was, and like a ladder truck, for instance, I think is in the neighborhood of like 1.2 million or
1.2 to 1.5 million.
Yeah, I guess we probably, in any case, would that maybe that goes to another of my questions I have, but so I'll hold that. But kind of broke my chain of thought. But another problem that I see is that we may not have been adequately accounting for all of those additional costs from some of our already built developments. So for instance, the ladder truck, we probably should have started thinking about it when the Hilton was built. Now it's like, whatever, 16, 17 years ago. And I don't know if there was a 15 years ago. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make it older than it really is. But, and whether or not that was really calculated and included when the Sheraton was built, I don't know. I mean, actually it was entitled before I was on the council. Another example might be Rubio Village, which was entitled in 2004. And is it possible to update the impact fees that we need from the developer? Because costs and things then are obviously, way less than they are now. And plus, I think part of what my general comment is that, we're finally now, I think, getting a grasp of all of the 40, 50 years of deferred maintenance, throughout the city. So we were always well aware of it with respect to streets and sewers, but now we're also, and we understand it with respect to the police station. Now we're starting to understand it too, as far as fire service and fire facilities lagging behind. So, but anyway, back to the specific question. I mean, with Rubio Village, are we charging adequate fees? Development impact fees, because I think they've pulled, and another just quick clarification for the public, those fees are paid at the time that building permits are pulled, and it's my understanding that that particular project does have its building permits. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, they pulled their permits recently. So without having the exact information in front of me, I would say they were required to pay the fees that we currently charge as part of our overall fee schedule. So I can certainly get more details for council as to how much they paid, but I'm very certain that they paid the fees that we currently require.
Fees that we currently require. Okay.
But the project was entitled in 2007, which is many, many years ago.
In a situation where it's not a PDO, can we charge fees above and beyond what the code states? So if it were, let's say a group home in a single family in our R1 neighborhoods, right? They're remodeling the group home to accommodate 6, people who are living there. And whatever the type of patient that would be there may require additional fire service or police service, but that's not going to necessarily require a PDO, but it may require a sort of a heightened. There would be a heightened impact, perhaps with respect to fire or police service. Can we account for that in the development impact fees for a project like that?
From my experience, and we can come back with a more thorough answer, but from my experience, if we require a discretionary permit, like a conditional use permit, then yes, we can assign impacts that are solely mitigated by that project. Otherwise, it's presumed that if it's something that falls under our zoning, that it's paid for by our current fee structure.
I see. Yeah, I guess but in that specific example, in like the Lanterman type of case, there's no COP required, so we probably couldn't. Okay.
And our fees were set at some point. I should have that date memorized as many times as I looked at it recently, but I don't. But it does have an escalator in it each year, so it does increase each year.
Okay, thank you. So if our current staffing and equipment is unsustainable, why wouldn't it also be unsustainable if we go to the county? Because in fact, we would be going from ALS to BLS service within the city.
I would recommend that to address that ALS to BLS, that we don't go to BLS. We stay with the option A, which mirrors our complete ALS service right now. Well, going to the county and the costs moving forward with what we have here, it may not be sustainable. I don't have an easy answer to that one.
Right. I know this is conjecture. A lot of the questions that we have is like, staff, please predict the future for us.
Yes,
But
polish my crystal ball tonight.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's reasonable to assume that if we ourselves have assessed that our own level of service and equipment in terms of apparatus is unsustainable, that the county would conclude the same thing, and they would want to also increase the cost or add some components to it, which would then increase our cost and would be subject to this fee cap, but that's just what we pay, not what we would ultimately owe, right?
If we were to request more and add more resources, that basically puts us back to the drawing board, and we'd have to restart the contract. If the quote we have is basically we've quoted something. Here's what we want, and here's what they're going to give us. If we want to add to that, the prices, yes, they will change and most likely increase.
So, this kind of goes back to some other questions that my colleagues have too. Let's say 6 months into this contract, county says, you know what, you need another squad, or you need another RA. So who do they get to just assign it and then bill us for it? Or
no, that would be back subject to negotiation again. Okay. They can't just put a cost on you without our consent.
All right, thank you. Those are my additional questions. Again, I join my colleagues in thanking the staff for the very thorough report. I think it's fascinating for any member of the community who is interested in this issue. It's not terribly long. It's manageable. It's good bedtime reading. But it's very clear, very thorough, and it lays out where we are and what the two options offer, as alternatives to our current service and structure. So I'd like to turn now and see if we can move towards what are we going to do about this. I agree also with Vice Mayor Menchaca that, and others who that we not only do we need to have a clear picture of our financial picture after the March election with the sales tax measure, because with the annexation cost of $2.4 million, even as if it's amortized over 3 years, we have not budgeted $800,000 in the current year, to enter into any kind of conversion. So essentially, it's impossible. I mean, it would be impossible for us to not impossible, but we would have to cut or do something else drastic to find $800,000 to pay for the conversion costs if it were entered into this fiscal year, which is. So therefore, it's not a decision we can even begin to undertake, I think, until next fiscal year, if we can allocate the budget for it.
If I can just make a quick point with that as well. I don't know that the county would be ready to take us in this fiscal year, because there's quite a bit that has to happen on their side. Vernon is going through this right now, and it's months and months and months to do this. It would be well into next year. I would think at least a year from now. If for some reason you decided tonight, it would be well into next year before this would happen.
I see. Okay. Thanks for that. What's the lag time, or what's the lead time?
The ones I've seen in the past have gone from 8 to 9 months to 2 to 3 years. Depends on
2 to 3 years.
Yeah. It depends on how negotiations go between the city and the county.
I see.
How quick their internal services department move, how quick we move. There's a plethora of variables in there.
I asked this question earlier, but I don't know. Maybe. Perhaps, Chief, you know the answer. How long are these? And these are all these numbers, everything we've seen here are all just estimates. But how long are they good for?
The conversion study, I can't speak to. That's kind of just a snapshot in time. What actually happens when the conversion happens. That could go down, that could go up. My feeling of that is it's going to go down because we've already taken care of some of those items.
Like equipment that they're listing, they have like very detailed, line item.
They do have very detailed line items, and what they haven't done is said that how many of those we have that they can use. So what will happen is they'll take our engines, look through it, make the conversion, figure out what we have, take it all, credit us back for everything we have that they're taking. As you saw, we had the 1819 as the initial estimate, and then after the contract negotiations were completed, they gave us a new update for 1920. I would expect that happens as well.
So we'll be a moving target no matter what.
Yeah, until the point where you had something locked in, it would be subject to change, yes.
Just a quick question then, are you aware of any situations in which a city entered into negotiations, they decided they wanted to consolidate, but then pulled out in the middle because, for whatever reason, the cost, was way higher than was originally anticipated, or any other number of issues?
I'm not aware of any city that actually pulled out. Vernon started going that way, but they recovered and completed the negotiation and are in the transition process. I believe it was Redondo Beach recently. It was in the Hawthorne pulled out?
City of Hawthorne?
No. Hawthorne, I thought, had been with the county for some time. I was under the impression that Redondo had done the feasibility study, done the conversion study, and they've stopped it, and they've decided that it is more feasible for them to maintain their own services.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So anyway, that's all for future. Because in other words, my own position is that, we not only need to get, more community and stakeholder input, but also to have more details, more certainty about our own financial situation as well as the sales tax measure. So I support the recommended action. I'm open to hearing from my colleagues as to how they feel.
I was just going to say, I also support it. The recommendation focuses a lot on the sales tax measure, but I think all of us have some more questions. And I think it's not just because of the sales tax measure, but to have our questions answered and to have more level of detail, because I think each one of us, would like to know more. In my case, the conversion cost, of course, that's another issue. But the fact on the enhancements that you talked about, the 5-year plan, there's still a lot that needs to come into play for us to make a really sound decision. I would like to just defer it for a later time.
I actually think, too, that there's the vast majority of the community doesn't even know that we're considering this yet, even though we've been talking about it, working on it for like two years, and that we may, other folks might have questions that come up that need to be answered, or we just need to. I do think I understand what you were saying earlier as to why community outreach wasn't done already, in part because you're waiting for us, the council, to make a decision. But I think I hope there's consensus of the council that we should start doing outreach on this issue, so that we can get more feedback and input. We've heard
So actually, there's a community meeting for this project. It's the St. Gabriel Nursery project on December 3rd. So actually, you can come out and talk to the people.
Well, no, that's mixing up things up. I think we do need to, that would obviously be driven by the developer of that project, and we need to be able to do our own forums, I think.
Yeah, we have plans, and we're now put into process, given the direction we've received, our own standalone town halls and informational meetings.
Okay.
And we'll definitely get a public education campaign moving on this.
Now, I know this is maybe a lot to ask, but is it possible to, to do these, like the 5-year strategic plan and things like that, and the community outreach forums and so forth in parallel, like do them actually together? Actually they intertwine. I don't know if I would necessarily say that, because they are almost like two alternative paths, as far as going to county or sticking with our own department and trying to come up with a 5-year plan that does will eventually get us to providing sustainable level of service or an adequate staffing, so forth and so on. Comp too, obviously salaries always need to be figured into it as well. But do you get my meaning?
I do, and I think it's possible to do it concurrently, and as well as as the development of those plans happen, have that information shared in these meetings in the public education piece.
Thank you, very much appreciate that. I think that would be very helpful for us on the council, for me on the, personally, and also for the community to be able to see too, what does it really mean? Because I think the introduction of the staff report, it says, it's time for, it's time for the department to grow again. It hasn't happened, I think, for whatever.
It's been about 18 years, going on 19 years.
18 years, yeah. It's kind of even blossomed into a sort of more, maybe even broader discussion or evaluation of where we are and what do we need to do going forward in order to make sure that we do keep up and we don't fall behind as we have in the past.
Exactly. This has opened up, I think, everybody's eyes to a lot more, and that's how we're going to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Yeah, I'll move staff recommendation.
I'm sorry?
Move staff recommendation.
Okay, motion, is there a second? Okay, motion and second. I guess let's go to the board.
Just for clarity, that's the staff recommendation to receive and file the report. The other items on there are
not the alternatives.
Right. Okay.
Just staff recommendation.
Just what's in the staff report here.
Yeah.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Paula. And we'll look forward to continuing this conversation, both with you and with members of the community. Thanks for sticking it out, gentlemen. Okay, so we are back to public comment now. Could you please read the instructions there?
Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to address the City Council, we request that you please complete a speaker's request card and hand it to the clerk. When speaking, please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Sharon. And I have a brand new speaker's request card from Li'i Furumoto. Is that right? Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Li'i Furumoto, and I serve as a project director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles. So good evening. I'm here this evening to encourage the City of San Gabriel to pass a moratorium on no-fault evictions as a stopgap measure before the implementation of AB 1482 in January 2020. I work with immigrant families in the San Gabriel Valley, specifically low-income Asian Pacific Islander families. One of the things I do as part of my job responsibilities is I teach a community ESL class at First Baptist Church, and many of my students are residents of the City of San Gabriel. When I ask my students what's the major issue that they're facing, overwhelmingly they always say it's the issue of affordable housing and it's the high cost of the high cost of rent. My students are overwhelmingly low income, limited English proficient, but they're very hardworking families, and then some of them are caretakers for elderly parents, for disabled children, and some of them are on fixed incomes. So obviously, any increases in rent are very difficult for them to face, and evictions obviously would cause their families a great hardship. Our students, though, my students in my ESL class have faced rent gouging and unjust evictions. And as a result of that, my students and I have become advocates for affordable housing because of the experiences that we've seen. Our organization, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, has hosted a number of forums. They've actually been primarily in the city of Alhambra, but we've had many participants across the San Gabriel Valley. At these forums, we've heard from families about the high cost of rent, about rent gouging, and about unjust evictions. At one of our forums in this past April, we had 120 participants, and over 80% of those who we surveyed who participated in it said that they overwhelmingly supported local city government implementing policies that supported renters in local cities, and especially they supported policies of to prevent rent gouging and unjust evictions. I sincerely believe that any measure that you're able to take up would help our families and would be able to prevent any problems that could happen to families, including preventing homelessness in the city of San Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Furumoto. Is there any other member of the public who would like to address the San Gabriel City Council? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Next is City Manager's report. Okay. Next is council comments, and I will recognize myself to ask the council, poll the council as to whether or when we might be able to schedule a special meeting to consider an urgency ordinance to place a moratorium on no-fault evictions, as has been advocated for eloquently by numerous people here tonight. Vice Mayor Menchaca.
I have to check my calendar, but I agree with you. I think we should take this up. Offhand, I would say next Tuesday, but I need to check my calendar.
I was thinking Thursday. Thursday evening?
This Thursday evening.
No?
Could we do it late Thursday?
I cannot. I have to attend National League of Cities in San Antonio, Texas. Can we do it? No, I'm flying out tomorrow, so I have to be.
Well, we can. How do you say it? Put the sign.
It requires 24 hours notice legally. So you know, the earliest we could do it would be, say, 10 p.m. or 9:45 p.m. tomorrow.
No, I'm talking about he's going to be in San Antonio on Thursday. As long as we agendize where he's going to be.
I'll have him appear telephonically.
So I can I just vote yes right now?
It is possible to have a member appear telephonically. I don't think that changes the notice requirement.
Okay.
What it's called, notice requirement.
We can't have a majority of the council appearing telephonically, however.
Okay.
Well, are you the only one? Who?
I'm
I mean,
the only one?
oh, you aren't. You won't be here either. Okay.
What about tomorrow night at 10 p.m.?
I can be here. Bring your wife.
10 p.m.
So I have to call you?
I mean, there's no harm in having a member appear telephonically, or two even.
Well, are you able to participate telephonically on Thursday evening? No. Okay. Because the reason too is because then, or what about during the day then, either Thursday or Friday? Because honestly, you know, next week is Thanksgiving week. It's going to be hard. I'm planning on being out of town, so yeah. So and
So
unless we're willing to do it on a Saturday, we could. I mean, is it possible to schedule a meeting on a Saturday or a Sunday?
You're allowed to.
Okay. But would it be possible to do lunchtime on Thursday?
I'm available. What about Friday morning?
I mean, I have a press conference at 11 a.m., but...
I do too, but we
right.
can do it early.
We could do it
8
earlier.
o'clock, 7 o'clock,
I know.
6 o'clock.
Would you be able to participate
5 o'clock.
telephonically from work?
Not from work, because it's a public facility.
Right.
And it's locked.
Yeah, the location that you're appearing from has to be accessible to the public.
Yeah,
and you
we're
to post notice.
key badged in.
We're back, I'm sorry, Thursday evening, late 10 p.m., was that a problem?
I mean, if we're gonna do 10 p.m., I'd rather do tomorrow than Thursday. 'Cause Thursday, I'm gonna be out.
Okay, so tomorrow, what time tomorrow?
Can we all? It'll be a long.
I know. We would just come afterwards. Because the chamber will end at, we'll say 9 o'clock. We can be here by 10. That's the 24 hours.
Okay. I think that's the best,
How
solution.
fast can we post it?
10:30, 11. I mean, at this point,
In theory, Marilyn could leave the meeting right now and do it, but that's what we need to do.
Can post the notice for the meeting.
Is it better to do it at 10 p.m. tomorrow night, or what about like an early morning meeting Thursday or Friday?
No, I won't be back till like Sunday morning.
Well, let's say you're telephonic.
Okay.
And we're doing the meeting at, I'm just throwing a timeout. Let's
I
say
mean, it
it's
shouldn't take long, right?
It shouldn't
one
take
item.
too long.
I get up at 5, so.
We could do like 8 a.m.
Or
on Friday.
6.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's an hour.
yeah, I'm fine with 6 a.m. if that's what John.
I'm at work by 7:30. So.
I can do
You're at
6.
work by 7:30, so 6 a.m. on Friday morning.
6:30, whatever.
All right, I'm gonna sleep here.
There's a great place at the Hilton.
Boy, this is gonna be a hard one to explain, but. All right. Is that what it's gonna be? 6? That gets you.
No,
to
I mean,
work
it's like,
on time?
no, I mean, I can go as late as long as I leave San Gabriel by 7:15, I'm fine. So even 7 a.m. will work.
7 a.m. would be better. It isn't. That's the other thing. I mean,
It's not.
Well, wait a
However,
minute, we have the urgency ordinance, it has to be
we still would
4/5.
need 4/5.
But I guess
in
you
order to
could
pass it.
miss one.
We're better having all 5, I think.
Yeah, it's better to have all 5 because it's an emergency
All right.
ordinance.
7
so.
a.m. on Thursday.
Well, Thursday or Friday?
So to pass this requires 4/5 votes, right?
Correct.
So, yeah.
I'm good Thursday or Friday, whatever you choose.
Well, it can be either, and I shouldn't hold it up, but I do have another meeting commitment, believe it or not, that in Ridgecrest that I have to get out to
On Thursday?
Thursday, so I would have to send, I don't know, maybe Lloyd or somebody, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, somebody, I mean, we'll have to prepare the urgency ordinance and then presumably walk you guys through it or something.
All right, 7 a.m. on Thursday.
All right.
Thank you for sticking out to the end. I guess I'll just round out my council comments because there aren't too many here. We did go to the Eddie Awards as a finalist for most business-friendly city, but unfortunately we did not win yet again this year. Let me just add that into my calendar. So I've learned that it's a bad sign if they seat you in the back of the room. But it's an honor to just to be nominated, and so I think that one of these years hopefully we'll be able to take home the top prize. And kudos to the staff and thanks to the staff for continuing to plug away and still keep us moving forward on the economic development front, even in the face of headwinds and the kinds of difficult financial situations we've faced. I just wanted to let the council know that meetings for Lunar New Year have also begun. It looks like we will be able to bring back a dance crew element at the end of the evening, which won't be the same as before, but it will still hopefully bring that same level of energy. On Thursday, I will be attending the San Gabriel Valley COG meetings for Transportation Committee as well as the General Board. And lastly, a while back, somebody had inquired about the elections investigation report from 2013. And so I went looking for it, and actually it took a while, but we were able to obtain it. Keith's office has spent some time to redact it. I believe it's like 630 some pages long. So that document is now a public document and is available for all of us if you like to review it, or for any member of the public who would like to review it. So just wanted to give that heads up to the council. So that's it for me. Councilmember Harrington.
Oh, sorry, I had my light on. I just wanted to say thanks to staff for Turkey Trot. It was a good event. I couldn't believe the kids, how fast some of those kids are. Wow, they're like 38 minutes on the 5K. I was like, man, that kid's flying. I was like, wow. There were a lot of runners. It was really well attended. I want to thank staff for that and all the participants. Since we won't see you till we'll see you guys, but probably not the public. I wish everybody happy and safe Thanksgiving. And we'll see the public at the tree lighting, 6 o'clock Plaza Park, December 3rd. And I did want to ask staff, I know we've discussed a little bit, if we could get an analysis, because they've changed once again, AB 68, which is it's affecting the ADUs. If we can get kind of, because they last minute changed a few things, and I think it was approved October 9th by the governor. I just want to see the impact, because I've seen very conflicting requirements of the city regarding lot coverage, the actual number of units that are now allowed depending on lot coverage, how floor area ratio is affected, just generally just a good update for the council, because it might affect our ordinance. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Machaka.
Okay. Same as what he said earlier, but I wanted to add, I like to see an update on the sales tax measure, where we are with the campaign. Are we meeting all our, the timeline? I believe there was a timeline of sorts, and I just expected to start to see something a couple weeks ago when I first asked. So if we can just get an update. And then I just wanted to let my colleagues know, I had mentioned before that I had attended the Strive conference, which was the conference that our chief was able to bring in and include a lot of community members and the hospital and the schools, and talked about community policing and how both the police and the stakeholders, we can help in identifying any kind of violent extremism. Well, the instructors emailed me and asked me if I would write a letter of recommendation, because I guess they haven't had a council member attend in the past. We're the first ones on the West Coast. So I went ahead and did it under my title, Vice Mayor, and I just thought you should at least be made aware of that. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Costanzo.
Great turkey trot, and glad to see everybody tonight.
Councilmember Leal.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So 2 days ago, I attended a seminar by the Minority Business Development Agency, along with the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and they taught us how to survive any natural disasters. According to their statistics, 25% of business cannot survive after any wildfire or earthquake. So SBA has a very low interest loan, that's 4%, and can be approved in 21 days. Also, I was suggesting that, he left already. So I think every residence, every commercial, business place, they can install, it's called earthquake automatic shut-off valve. Okay, just think about earthquake. You just ready to run out or high under. You don't have time to shut off the valve, and this device attached to the meter itself. And so once the earthquake hits, it's just shut it off, and so that prevents all the fires caused by the gas line. Another event I attend is in St. Gabriel, Sheraton. It's the Seroptimus. And this year, my friend Bruce, who is the resident from St. Gabriel and only male member in this Seroptimus club, and I'll be joining him next year because this is a great club. Let me tell you, because all women, but they have a good program. It's called Live Your Dream Awards. So they identify 6 community members, single mom or, people live under poverty and they cannot afford to go to college, they cannot find jobs. So it's not just a scholarship, they give out the money, they actually work with these ladies and so they can achieve skills or try to help them to find employments. So I think this is the best program I've seen so far. So I don't mind the second male in the whole club. Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So we still actually have closed session after this, but we will take let's say roughly a 10-minute recess and then reconvene around 10:05 p.m. or so in conference room A. Thank you.